Okay, it's March 1st meeting of the Scituate Waterways Commission. I'd like to ask for an acceptance of the agenda for this evening.
Motion that we accept the agenda for the March 1st meeting.
Second motion.
Second by Mike Gibbons. And acceptance of our February 15th, 2017 minutes. Everybody get a chance to read those?
Well written.
I wrote copious. Yeah. Copious.
Okay, do I have a motion to accept?
Motion to accept.
Second?
Yeah.
Second by Brian.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks, Steve. Okay, what we're going to do tonight is something very similar to the last meeting. We're looking at the questions that we submitted to the consultant, the questions coming from all of you folks, and we kind of put them all together and summarized them and sent them to them. And I'd like to introduce Charlie Cristello over here on my right. Charlie's a consultant who worked for us on this, and I think he did a pretty outstanding job of kind of things that took us 3 or 4 months to do. He somehow did in a couple. We're going to review the questions that were most popular that were sent, and then we're going to go over some of the emails. We're going to do this with the commission first of all, like we did last time. There'll be a time for the audience to chime in and ask questions. First of all, I want to have Steve Mullen with the Harbor Master Report.
Today we had a meeting with the Army Corps of Engineers to look at the North Jetty. That project appears to be moving forward, the repairs to the North Jetty. The weather's getting warmer. We're starting to get ready to schedule crane days to start putting the marina back in place. I've interviewed and sent over a list of new staff and returning staff to Town Hall. And that we're in pretty good shape.
Thank you.
Steve, Fran, good question.
Brian.
Stephen, any update on the South River dredging on the permitting?
The South River dredging permit, we're still working on that. It's a slow process. I know Nancy Durfee is going to, she's getting ready to send out the easement to some of the people that are interested in looking at it.
Okay. Thanks.
Is it? Anyone else? Okay.
Oh, Dick has a question.
Dick Eckhouse.
Possible for the harbor master to give an update on the meeting with the selectmen for capital?
The capital meeting with the selectmen, I had that about a week and a half ago. It went very well.
Can I jump in for a second, Rick? It was with the capital planning committee. I
Yes.
happened to be there, but wasn't with the selectmen. But it was with capital, full member of the capital. Tricia happened to be there, town administrator.
Weren't all the selectmen there as well?
No. John Danahy and myself were there just by
Oh,
coincidence.
okay.
You know, just to see how things would go.
All right. So it went very well. I have another meeting tomorrow night with the advisory. We'll see how that goes.
Any other questions?
Yeah, one quick question. So on the North Jetty, so when are they looking to do that project?
They're hoping to get that project started this spring.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're trying to get it moved forward. It's hopefully it won't turn into a funding issue. But that's what their plan is.
And the only second thing I had was that I don't know if we get a chance to talk about it at the last meeting or not, but your grant came through?
It did. I think I announced that at the last meeting.
You did, right? Okay.
Yes.
Anyone else? Okay, again, what we're going to attempt to do is present the questions and the answers, and from that point we'll see what happens with the commission. What our goal ultimately is tonight is to be able to make a recommendation for or against the consultant's report and send it on to the selectmen. I'm going to have Brian Cronin do me a big favor and go over the questions and the answers. Brian?
Frank, do you have an extra set of those?
Oh, yeah.
Before you start, are we going to be able to make, like, if something comes up and we vote on it and we think one thing, but the consultant thinks something else, we're going to make our changes on our document and we'll submit it, and then the selectmen will get two, one from us and one from the consultant? Is that what I'm understanding?
Well, I think if we could, why don't we let Brian read through the questions and the answers?
No, that's, you can either, you'll vote up the document or vote the document down, is the way I understand it.
That's what I was going to say. We'll go over the
Just
questions,
gonna-
go over the answers,
So there's no latitude for us at all?
and then we can discuss if we have issues. This is for the commission right now, and then we'll go over it if we have any questions. I don't want to open up new cans of worms. I mean, this is just the consultant's report, if we could.
But it's the document that you've received is the one that's going to be voted on.
Right.
Okay, so the list of questions,
Sean?
I was just gonna add, I don't know if that answered Keith's question, but you put your heads together, when Charlie's here for this meeting, if you think you need to meet again, to fine tune it, then present it to us. You want to get it to us as quick as you can, but to answer your point, Keith, if you have questions or concerns, you might not agree, I think it's up to this commission, and then bring the document to the board of selectmen.
Right.
Yeah, I thought that's what was going to happen. I thought...
But not, you have a second meeting.
Oh, I thought
That's up
selectmen's
to you.
meeting.
Well,
Correct.
I'm speaking, Fran.
Go ahead.
That's up to you if you feel you need another meeting to fine tune it and then bring it to the board. Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead, Keith.
Can I speak?
Yes.
Thank you. So I understood it as we were going to go, he answered a lot of the questions, and we were going to go through it, and if there's like one specific thing that we thought should be 14 days instead of 7, as a group, we were going to vote on those little issues, and if we needed to change those little issues, we could present that to the selectmen. But it doesn't have to be the same as the consultants, is how I understood it. But if I'm totally wrong, I'm totally wrong. I don't think we need another meeting, I just think...
I think what we could do in that case is, if we have a correction or something we'd like to change on this, I don't think it's going to take a motion, but I think we should get the commission's ideas on it, make the changes, and then we'll submit to the Board of Selectmen the report with the changes that we were recommending.
Yeah. And then they can pick which one they want
And,
to go with.
well,
the
if they have
consultant on.
further input, then they can take care of it from there.
Right. That's how I thought it was going to
Yeah.
happen.
Any questions on that?
Have there been any changes since the last meeting?
No.
So as it was presented to the
You got a copy of the
public,
paper, right?
no. So the last meeting, it was presented, and then a lot of people responded to that.
That's right.
Were any of the, so did their responses
That's what we're
result
doing.
in changes?
We had some of the responses I dealt with directly. I called the people, or I emailed them, if it was one out of, 50. And the rest of them, hopefully, we're going to be addressing here tonight. Does that...
I'm confused. I just...
The documents
that
are-
the report that has been written is being presented to the selectmen.
The report that has been written, the consultant wrote a report. We reviewed the report. I sent out a copy of the report to whoever wanted the report. We had a meeting on the 1st of February for input on that report.
Right.
With the questions that I received from that, we sent them to the consultant to get an idea of where he got his answers, or how he came to conclusions, because that's what people are looking for. And that's what we're addressing tonight.
But there were no changes to it.
The draft is the same.
The draft is the
It's the
same.
same-
The draft is the
same
same. We have not changed, we've changed one thing that we agreed on, I think it was a matter of 14 days on, when someone gets a mooring, we thought it might be better 14 days to turn the equipment over as opposed to the 7 days that was recommended. Other than that, it's the same. Peter?
Just a clarity, Fran, I appreciate. Your objective is to accept or reject the consultant's report, to then be able to submit that to the selectmen. That's your objective tonight? It's not that you're altering the mooring regulations tonight, or is that a...
No, the mooring regulation, the actual changes of the regulations will take place with the Board of Selectmen. The consultant recommended certain changes to the regulations. We've been discussing it for the last few months.
So you're looking to accept or reject those recommendations of the consultant for those changes to the mooring regulations?
Right.
For the selectmen to act upon
Right.
as it relates to the mooring regulations?
Right.
So the end result is altering the mooring regulations?
Correct.
As presented to the selectmen?
Correct.
Okay.
Brian?
Okay. Was the search, so reoccurring questions asked by many people. Was the search for new revenue part of your request task? No, it was not. The RFP required that a review of current fees charged for slips and moorings and compare with similar communities. Just want me to read through them, Fran, or do you want to comment, or do we want to, or just?
Anybody in the commission? I'd like to do just the commission right now if we have any questions.
Okay.
I would just say that maybe after he reads each answer, we just look around, see if anyone's got a comment. If
Fine,
not,
sure.
Keep going.
Review current fee charged for slips and moorings compared with similar communities. Why only commercial marinas and not municipal marinas? The answer to that is Scituate is unique. Most municipalities don't operate marinas. If there'd been a marina near Scituate, I would have included it.
David?
Mr. Chairman, this may get addressed later in the report, but if within the operating parameters of a enterprise fund, we cannot or should not raise funds simply to increase revenue.
Right.
We can increase fees to fund needs of that enterprise. But so any adjustment, doesn't it need to be justified?
Based on need, right?
That's my question.
Right, and we're not, the only thing that was addressed really on fees in this, I believe, was the slip fees. And whether they, at this point in time, were too low or too high. And there was a recommendation made. We're not going to change anything at this point, but there was a recommendation made.
Okay, that's my question. Is any change appropriate?
We're not going to change anything now. It's too late for the billing cycles. It's too late for people who are in the marina and need to go somewhere else if they opted not to. So basically, this year, there won't be any changes in that.
There won't be any changes this year, but this is a proposed change.
And that'll be up to the waterways to make recommendations after tonight.
So tonight's really mostly focused on the mooring regulations portion of the report. I guess we should have said that, right? It's really more specific to that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Dave?
Do other cities and towns charge both a per-foot mooring fee and a waterways usage fee? Some do, however, most communities closest to Scituate in Appendix C charge the same fee whether you are in a slip or on a mooring.
Anyone?
Does the optimization study, the regrid, make sense economically when you do not do it in conjunction with dredging? Any examples of optimization paying for itself in this non-dredging type situation? And the answer is I do not know. I didn't ask that question during my interviews.
Anyone? I think myself that we should look into whether it's worthwhile to do a regrid before we just go ahead and do that. You know, get some instances where other towns have benefited by it. That's just my own opinion of the matter. Okay.
Is the town of Scituate Waterways Commission currently violating the state's conflict of interest statute? Waterways does not decide rates. Waterways only advises the Board of Selectmen. I cannot make this determination. It is my recommendation that the commission members take care not to violate conflict of interest statutes and seek advice of town council if necessary.
Anyone? Okay.
Mooring assignment methods. Let's see. No individual can apply for a mooring, be assigned a mooring, a mooring or a slip in Cole Parkway or Scituate Marine Park unless 18 years of age. parentheses, what becomes of those under 18 who are currently on the waiting list? Do they stay or are they removed? And will their positions be grandfathered? If you don't need a license to vote, why should you have to present an ID to the harbor master to prove your age for a current position? So the answer to that, the regulations do not allow someone who is under 18 to be assigned a mooring, therefore they should not be on the waiting list. I would return their money and remove them from the waiting list.
Keith?
I'm sure we'll get to this when the time comes in the document, but I wrote something that I was going to ask us to vote on tonight so that we could take care of the kids that were under 18. I since changed my mind and decided not to give it out. I personally think anyone that's under 18 should just be grandfathered, and their name should stay at the top of the list until such time as they turn 18, and then they have to follow the same rules. The one time you get a pass, and then the second time you're off the list. I totally understand that you can't have a contract with someone that's 18 years of age or under. I totally understand that. But I can't, in good conscience, throw people off the list just because we're changing the bylaws. I just don't think that's a fair thing to do. But again, when we get to it in the regulations, we can address it then.
I think the concept was waiting for a kid to identify that he was interested in the water, not because he's 2 years old and his parents signed him up to be on the list.
But those kids are already, if there's already kids on the list that have been on there, if they were signed up at 2 and now they're 8 or 10, they've been on there for 8 years. So why are we just going to throw them off? Why would we do that?
Because they can't enter into a legally binding contract.
But then we're not asking them to. We're going to leave them at the top of the list until they turn 18, and then they can legally go into a contract.
Brian?
So, Mr. Chairman, before this becomes a point of contention, do we have any idea if there's anybody who is under 18?
There is. I know
There's a couple.
How many? 2?
There's a few.
My son he's 16, went on the list as 12 when he started voting.
I know 3 or 4.
Okay.
I don't think it's 100, so I don't think it would be that much of a burden, but again, we can all discuss it. And that's why I thought we were going to vote on specific issues when we got to them, because we may not all agree on certain things.
So it's a fair point what Keith's bringing up, the fact that if they're frozen in spot until they become 18, then obviously grandfathering them seems to be a fair rule.
And it's not going to slow down your list, because you don't have to call them every year. You know that they're under 18, and you know when they're going to turn 18. So they can just hang there.
Stephen? Anything?
I agree with the consultant.
Brian?
Could you just leave them, not accept anybody else who's under 18 and just leave these people on the list until they turn 18?
Like I said, I agree with the consultant.
My only concern would be that we'd be opening a can of worms as far as grandfathering. Because
You're grandfathering everything.
You're going to grandfather
on the
one thing, and we're
document.
going to get requested to grandfather everything. I agree, if someone's been on the list, and I happened to be in the harbor master's office one day, and a kid came in, he's like 15, he wanted to be on the list because he wanted a mooring, because he wanted a boat. He's stuck,
Well, if that was recently, he shouldn't be stuck, because the rules are still in play that he could have signed up.
No, I mean, he's stuck as far as where he would be if he went on the list. He was a young guy who was looking to, get into boating. And do you want to take a vote on this now, before we go any farther?
I was thinking we should vote on it as these come up so we can get through this stuff.
That's what I'm saying, because what we're doing now is trying to put together something, that we can present, or a synopsis of what we're all thinking. David?
Mr. Chairman, would it, if a grandfathered person that is now 18, as of 2017, is 18 years old, has been on the waiting list for a number of years, would they be considered grandfathered?
He's 18.
Okay.
It's a non-issue if he's 18.
But he or she has been on the waiting list for a number of years.
But he's 18, it's a non-issue.
So their anniversary date would be if I understand it correctly, their anniversary date would go back to their original date, even though they were not 18.
The date you sign up for mooring is the date that you put on the list, is what Dave's saying, right?
Okay.
So that's the one that determines when you get a mooring.
But if the person was not 18 when they signed up, they are 18 now.
Then technically your grandfather remains what you're
Okay,
saying.
so we are grandfathered.
You're not, because they're 18. The rules,
You are, because they weren't when they signed up.
the rules are in place today, okay? He's 18 today. It's not, he wasn't, he's not 17 and 9 months.
So what do we
He's
do?
18.
So what do you do with the 17-year-old who's...
You return their $20.
on the list?
If the regulations change, you return their $20.
Steve, what were you going to say?
No, I was just going to ask if the board does decide, the commission decides to vote on something, whether it's one component part of the report, I would ask that the public be allowed to comment before the board takes the vote, that's all. You seem like you were headed for a vote, and I just wanted to make sure that everybody had an opportunity to speak on this matter, or any other matter that the board, the commission wishes to take a vote on tonight.
Okay, in
In that spirit, by the way, if you're allowing the public comment, not really the public, but I would support grandfathering those kids that are on the list now. I don't agree with the consultant's recommendation in this matter.
So leave two...
I also agree that because you're grandfathering one thing, you're required to grandfather everything. That's, I don't know what legal precedent anybody's suggesting, but when you're focusing on this, you decide to grandfather these kids that are on the list, take no more 18, maybe nobody under 18 from this point forward. I don't see why you have to grandfather something else. I don't understand. I'm not sure what you're talking about, but I don't see why you have to grandfather anything else. So I just think it's unfair. Now, the counter argument to that is all of us in this room, most of us are probably old enough to remember when the drinking age was 18. You turned 18, you drank, and then all of a sudden, I was right around and went to 21. And you didn't get to drink anymore until you're 21. So there is the counter argument. You probably have the right to do what you want to do. I just don't agree with it. I think it should be grandfathered those on board. Thank you. Thank you.
Phyllis?
I'm sure you probably don't want to hear this, but, you got to think about, like, when we grew up, we had racing out here. We had Saturday and Sunday racing. And at 10 years old, we had boats on moorings because there was enough moorings to do that. Right now, you can't dry sail a boat out of Scituate. You don't have moorings to do any one-design sailing. So you're taking all these opportunities for these kids and giving them nothing. So you're going to have all these kids growing up in Scituate without any opportunities to go out, take boats, race, and do things in this harbor. And I think it's awful. And I think if you're not thinking ahead on what's happening in the sailing world, you're going to find out that if all these kids end up going to catamaran, you're going to have an awful problem in this harbor because the beams of these boats are going to be 28 feet and you don't have the room in this harbor. So I think you got to be proactive on some of this stuff and think about it. Because you're going to get yourself in a major bind in a couple of years if these kids realize that, hey, I can get a boat, I can put it down the ramp, and I can be sailing this thing around the harbor because I'm not getting any other options to do this. And I think you're totally...
But how would that have anything to do with the 18 years old on the waiting list?
Well, if you don't give the kids an opportunity, and if they've been on the list and they're really active in sailing, I mean, I can see the kids that the parents signed up at 2 years old, they should have never been on that list, but they did get on the list. But if you have real active kids that have a love for sailing, have a love for boating, Jared ended up, he had his little mossing boat, went out every single day. And he's got a boat in the harbor now. You're not giving the kids nowadays this opportunity. You're shutting the door on them.
Commissioner, have anything to say?
This gentleman over here.
Don?
Yeah. When these people signed up for the moorings, who actually signed up?
I believe their parents signed them up.
Right. So there was once a condition where a person could come in, sign up, and the agreement was...
I don't think they identified themselves as a child. I think they just walked in and said, I'd like to sign up for a mooring.
Yeah.
You handed them the form, they signed it up, and they accepted it. I think that's how it happened. I don't think a 2-year-old wandered into the office.
My suggestion is to go through, like, tag this as something we'll vote on.
No, there isn't.
Recommendation vote on the way.
These are in children, there was,
I don't know which way you want to
you know,
Well, I'm sure there's many 12-year-olds that signed up,
Do you
some
have
just
some-
2-year-olds walking on the
No.
harbor masters.
Would they have allowed it?
Or the report. My car's in the shop.
I wasn't here.
I know, that's why I'm wondering if anybody...
Yes, they did.
So can I just grab
Yes,
it?
they did.
Or said yours?
No, no, it's
Do we have
okay.
another copy?
That's my own copy.
His name was Mike.
You can do whatever you want with it.
I was
But
just
they
gonna
can't
say, I'll
enter-
take
you
notes
can't
on
be
what things we're gonna.
under
Yeah, just say
18
we'll-
and enter into a contract.
I don't know if they're gonna-
Ed,
2 points. Number one, if you hold a vote now on whether you can grandfather or not, if the vote is no, you therefore, I assume, eliminated that whole discussion for any later issue about grandfather, because you've established a precedent. Just as he was saying, if you vote to grandfather this, then you've got to agree to it later. So this is an issue that impacts several different parts of the regulations, this whole idea of grandfather. So you're not voting just on this one, you're voting on everything that is subsequent to this, because I assume you can't pick and choose. Well,
Well, also, Mr. Chairman, this vote tonight is for a recommendation to the select. We can't make those changes. This commission can't make that change. So the consultant's going to present the report.
I
Then the
understand that.
commission will say.
My point is, can the commission vote not to grandfather this, but to grandfather something else?
yes.
They can
Okay,
vote
so
to
it's one-
recommend. They can vote
Can they vote to recommend
grandfathering
to
this.
grandfather this
Yeah.
and vote to recommend not to grandfather that?
Sure.
In the name of consistency?
Yeah. They can choose what they want to grandfather.
In the name of, not in the name of consistency so much, but being an advisory committee or advisory board, that's basically all we're doing to the 5 selectmen, is telling them what we feel based on what we get from them. They could take the consultant's report just as it sits and just
I
bring it
understand
right
that,
through.
but the commission is making a recommendation.
That's what we're trying to do.
And the selectmen are going to say, okay, you voted not to grandfather this, but you voted to grandfather that.
Well-
I'll be fine with that.
If we could move on, we'll flag that, okay, just so we don't spend time on it right now, and we're going to go through at least the rest of the questions that we have here. And we'll flag whatever it is we need to and come back to it.
Okay. So the next question is, how does one prove 51% ownership if the Federal Documentation Center and the Mass DEP don't require or display percent of ownership? This would be an administrative nightmare for the Harbor Master's office. The answer, this language is used in Harwich. I spoke to the Harwich Harbor Master, and he does not have any problem administering this language.
Anyone?
I'll speak not as a member of this committee, I'll speak for myself. I don't like this rule, personally. It's going to make me change my corporation, which I don't think is right. And just because Howard does it this way, I actually spoke to a couple of towns myself today that have no rule for this. And not to put anyone on the spot, but I'd really like to know why this is even here. Why is this such a big issue when in all of our surrounding towns, it's not an issue at all? And it's never been an issue here before.
I don't know, I think we found it was an issue, just about everywhere.
Yeah.
Because you've got multiple people owning boats who live in Florida, and their boats sailing every day out of Scituate, and they haven't been here in 5 years. And the concern is, we have people who have been waiting for moorings for 10 years.
So
and-
in essence, the mooring was transferred.
Which is against the rules.
And this could cost the town an awful lot of money in federal funding.
How's that?
How's that? Well, the Army Corps just finds out that there's moorings being transferred to other people, not to just a spouse. Maybe they decide not to make repairs to the North Jetty. That costs money. Dredging costs money.
All due respect, you can't have it both ways. You're sitting on moorings, 60 moorings right now, which is not fair and equitable. And if somebody goes to them, I'm sure they're not going to find that fair and equitable. So you can't use the DEP argument for one thing, but then break it for something else. Doesn't seem right.
Peter?
Fran, so, because I asked that question that you just read, how will you administer it? Is it basically just a line on the mooring application, the annual renewal, that says I own more than at least 51% of this boat? That's essentially all the best you can do.
You'll be the first one on the registration, first one on the document. If there's only one name allowed on a registration or document, the mooring holder will be the person that's on that document. They'll be the first name on the insurance, on the excise tax.
Right. It still doesn't verify the 51%, but I guess if you put a line in that said,
if you want,
I attest to, or whatever it is, I guess that's how you get there.
It's when the insurance companies get involved, when something happens, is really when, everything percolates to the surface.
Yeah.
And if you want to take the gamble, you can.
Chairman, Chuck Schuller, I raised this at the February 1st meeting as well. I've had a mooring in this harbor since 1979. I own the boat with my siblings, a third. My understanding of this rule going forward, I would have to forfeit that mooring because the boat is owned a third. There is no one 51% owner. All three names are on the Coast Guard document, they're on insurance, and they've been on the mooring registration for as far back as I can remember. So I'm just seeking clarification of the language that the consultant's putting in here and how it's going to be administered.
Can I play you into this, Charlie, at this point, as far as your research for that particular question?
I think for that particular question, you're going to have to adjust your relationship with your siblings so that you have a document that shows that somebody on that those documents is a 51% owner.
And financially, that shouldn't be. You shouldn't be forcing a private citizen a change of ownership for this rule. That's a cake. And I also have experience and know other communities, of which I think you've quoted, where that isn't the rule. And
No,
so...
it's true. It's not the... let's back up a little bit. When Stephen proposed some of his changes back in the last spring, and I got involved this past fall, Stephen's original approach was to make all permits go to individuals and have all boats be owned by individuals. It wouldn't even allow corporations, partnerships, trusts, any of that. And when I first read that, I was a little taken aback by that. I thought, well, that seems... I understand what the problem here is. The problem is trying to stop inappropriate transfer of moorings. But do you really have to go that far, in a set of regulations in order to do that? Well, as I started reading many sets of regulations, I found that, in fact, what Steve had proposed is in existence in quite a few places. Quite a few places have just decided that they don't need to deal with complexity. And they have just, established a similar rule to what Stephen proposed, which was individuals on it. But, I thought, we can address the problem of transfers without doing that, because people do have complex lives and relationships. They do have, there are corporations, there are partnerships, and the like. And part of the reason I read 25 different sets of regulations was to find something that was out there, that was tested, that was used, that could be used here, and to keep the complexity that people might have in owning their boat, but also address the concern of the transfer. In doing that, I figured that there would be even more complex situations that any rule you wrote couldn't address, and I think yours is one of them. I wish I could have found something that would address yours. You're right. There's some communities that don't. They just leave it, leave it any which way, but they don't seem to have the problem with the illegal transfers that exist here.
I think my issue is you're forcing me to bring a different financial arrangement to an existing arrangement that's been in play for almost 40 years.
Yes. Unfortunately,
And
yes.
if I don't do that, I lose the mooring.
That's right.
And if I lie and say I'm going to be 51% owner, when in reality I'm not, I lose my mooring. So you're putting me in a hole.
Yes.
That's what I look for you to be reasonable in the recommendation you're bringing to this community. That is an unreasonable request.
If I could interject, I don't think it's it's not a popular point of view, but I don't think it's a real unpopular request. We've had a problem in the harbor. We're trying to do this for the good of many, and we're going to have situations, unfortunately, that aren't going to fit what we come up with. So that's why I'm soliciting, from the commission and everybody else. We're trying to get some information to find out the best. Mr. Scheller, I'm sure, would love to do it exactly along your lines, but we might not be able to because we have to make this work for everybody.
I beg the committee to look further and come up with something. I'm a managing owner on the Coast Guard documentation. There is no percentages. How are you going to enforce this, Steve? I guess I'm hearing that you're going to put it as a line on each year's application.
Everybody's going to be required to provide me with registration, insurance, just as they have been in the past, along with excise tax. It's not a hardship to send in a copy of your registration, copy of your documentation, copy of your insurance. The top person on the registration, on the document, on the insurance, it doesn't...
That top person today is me, and has been for 30-some-odd years.
Okay, then send it in.
51% owner. That's what I'm asking you and the consultant to say, hey, wait a minute, that seems reasonable.
We had somebody come into the office, and they wanted to pay for a mooring. And we said the name, and they said, well, I don't even know who it is. I know the mooring number. And we were like, how can you not know your own name? Because the mooring's been transferred. And that person is still on their documents as part owner at that 1%. Or 10%, or whatever it is.
Situation I'm saying. We're here, my siblings have been in this community, we've been almost 40 years. We're not a fly-by-night walking in trying to trip you on the 1% ownership. I get that that's the hole you're trying to close, but you're really boxing out the legal, law-abiding citizen that's had a mooring under these rules for that period of time. And maybe I won't shut up early because I really feel strongly that you need to reconsider these kind of situations. It isn't the 1% flip that you're trying to get away from.
And if I can back Chuck up here, I mean, we have been good stewards of this harbor for many, many, many years. And the majority of the people in this room have been in the harbor for many, 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 many years. And have not dodged, no, yes, you're going to get those 1%ers, so go after those guys, not the people.
How can I,
Well, obviously,
how do I figure out who they are?
You've got.
Okay, but how do I figure, but today, that's allowed, because there's nothing in the document that says you can't be a 1% owner. You have to put some sort of number on it, so that it can't happen. I said 100% because other towns that I talked to went to the 100% where they had a problem. Charlie and I spoke, and we went to 51%.
But maybe they're
And I think that's very reasonable.
People in the town, or in the harbor.
It's beyond the town. It's Scituate Harbor, and it is, the town, but it's everybody's. It's not just the towns. This is the state, the federal. This is fair and equitable to all.
I understand that.
Mike?
Can I just think of one thing, and I think it's what Chuck, I picked up one quick word that Chuck said, managing partner on the vessel documentation, right? That's what it is? Yep. Could that
The owner on the document.
Yeah, that's the thing, managing partner, could that be used instead of 51% or primary?
It's owner, there's the owner of the vessel on the document, and this managing partner.
Okay, so I
Owner
know
of the
that-
vessel
I know that-
is where
okay.
his name would go.
He's trying to come up with a way to do it without using the 51%.
That's right, that's what I'm asking for.
There's only 2 lines on the document.
You have my document, I send it, and it has my name first, my sister, my brother, and then...
Are you the owner of the, are you the owner of the vessel?
Charles Scheller.
Are you the owner of the vessel?
Along
It says,
with my 2
but it says
siblings.
owner of the vessel.
The 3
and then
names are listed in there.
They'll only list one name, and then they put the other ones under managing partners.
They're listed as 3. The 3 of us are there. I'll bring my Coast Guard document to you and show you.
Can I go a follow-up question over here? What about if somebody like a Scituate or a salvage company or a launch service have a mooring, or a harbor mooring service?
It's in your name.
So harbor mooring services, the mooring lifter is in harbor mooring services, is in, right now in Keith Wallow's name?
Correct, it's in
It
my
can go
name.
into a,
But if you read,
but
if you
now-
read what's in there, it says that I have to be the
51%
51% owner of the company, and as of right now, I'm not. So I have to change my company's structure to keep my mooring.
No, it's like, it's like we're talking about, I know I'm trying to bring up a big thing, but I'm just trying to clarify something for what because I think I probably started a lot of this when 2 years
No,
ago. Well, okay.
not really.
All right, well, don't shut up then.
Tim Montgomery?
Just say, what you could solve this problem by changing 51% to co-equal owner. That would take care of Chuck's situation. We have 3 people owning equal shares. It would eliminate the 1%, 99% situation. So co-equal ownership of either.
The problem with that is,
Corporation or trust would solve this problem.
the problem with that is, if you have, I have 9 brothers and sisters, and you have a boat and a mooring, and I'm willing, because I, have no issues with my brothers and sisters, to say, we're all gonna go on this boat registration. I'm getting a boat and a mooring in Scituate Harbor, and we're gonna leave this other guy on at 9%. I've gotten the boat and I've gotten the mooring.
It's true, you could infinitely divide this, however it
Correct,
eliminates
and that's the problem.
99% false transfer.
The issue with that is, and the whole reason for this rule, I think, is that in your situation, it becomes 6 people that could be owners of that mooring. We're talking about the 1%ers being, driving this issue. It's not so much as that, is that, we want it to be just a spouse. And that's 2 people could be owners of that mooring over time. In your case, it could be 4. Or in
2
Steve's case,
people
it could
are
be 9.
are basically
Your
owners of the
place
mooring.
is 6. It could be transferred.
3 has only been 3.
And each of those spouses is what we're talking about.
Not all are married.
Okay, but they could be, and that's, I think, what we're trying to get away from, is that it should be one other person, so.
Who's the mooring, who's the name in the,
Charles E. Scheller.
that's you?
That's me.
Okay.
I'm first
That's
listed
it.
on the Coast Guard document, then my brother, then my sister. And I'm wondering if maybe a consideration might be given for a rule that the ownership of 51% is the rule, but maybe we consider the idea that only one other person, in his situation, his spouse, could take that mooring after he...
That's the rule now.
That's the rule
You
now.
can't
Matt's
change
not
that.
changing that.
There's no change in that.
I think this brings up another problem, because what are you going to do with the John Smith and John Smith Jr. and John Smith III that don't put the junior and third, and then that mooring stays in the family and it goes down? How are you going to solve that?
It's just something we're working on. Dates of birth.
How does the commission want to take some kind of a vote on this?
There's still questions. Let's go through.
I have one recommendation, if that's okay, Mr. Chairman.
Sure, go ahead.
Steve, you said that you had a mooring in somebody's name, you have the registration in one person's name, you have the insurance in one person's name, or the top name, first name then short. In the insurance business, the first name insured is always the one that gets the bill. First name insured is always the one who gets paid on a loss. First name insured is who's the policy is going to defend in the event of a loss. I think that if you put in there that exact term, first named insured, as the insurance proof, and it matches the mooring, you don't have to worry about the 51% anymore. You're not going to get a 1% person that's going to be like, hey, go take my, 40-foot Scarab, and I own 1%.
Isn't that what you said?
You're all good, my house is on the line now.
That's kind of along the lines that we were talking before.
Yeah, but instead of putting down the 51%, which is, I could get a notarized letter that says I own 51% of next to it, so instead of getting rid of
That's why I'm asking for first name on the registration, first name on the insurance, first name on the excise tax, first name.
Absolutely.
First name across the
But maybe you
board.
should just say that instead of the 51%. That way you're going to get rid of an issue like this gentleman
Because
behind
what
me
you're
has.
saying, Steve, isn't in this reg, only the 51%.
Right, so what I'm saying is maybe you should get rid of that and just have it first named insured, first name on the excise tax bill has to match the name on the mooring, period. That's it.
Okay,
You can enforce that. You can't enforce a 51% rule.
Let me throw a monkey wrench in the works, Mr. Scheller. You got 3 people on the mooring, on the boat, ownership, and your name is on the mooring.
Yes.
Where does that leave the other 2 people if you're no longer around that?
Goes to my wife. That's it. They're then out. They then have the problem, as Steve's saying, being on a waiting list, which I believe my brother is. Because in case something happens to my wife and myself, he's got to wait to whatever period of time it's going to be that his name surfaces to be able to get the mooring. In the meantime, that happens, we've got to go elsewhere. Scituate won't accommodate.
Just ask him to weigh in on that.
Charlie, can you shed any light on anything like with the co-equal owners?
Or first name insured?
Or first name insured?
I can tell you I didn't see anything like that anywhere that relied on, that. Although, as we do here, many other places would give the harbor master the ability to ask for any documents that would help prove that they were the owner. But no, I didn't see anything that resembled that.
Doesn't mean it's not good, though. Why can't we just change instead of 51%, do what Steve just said? And that covers everything you want. It's first insured, first whatever, first whatever. Instead of the words 51%, just put those 3 things in.
David. Steve, could a lower percentage owner be the first,
Yes, it could be, but then that person's, technically, I could own,
2%,
2%. I still have an insurable interest in the boat. I could be the first name on the list. But again, that's like me saying, Brian, I own 1% of your boat, but I'm going to put it, when your kids go out in the boat, my house is on the line now, in case, you run somebody over. So that gets a little hairy. People get weird when it's stuff like that.
But the insurance agency doesn't necessarily ask the percentage of owners or anything like that.
No.
They just say, who do you want? Who's the owner? And they just list the name. So that's it. That could be a way to do it, but...
You could change that as well as the 51%. Right? Just saying, here's a piece of paper, Brian, you own 51%, here you go. Which is more difficult.
That's not legal, but I could say...
Why would that be legal?
What, to say it's 51%, it's not?
Well, I didn't say that it wasn't. We could come up with an idea, an agreement that it's 51%. I didn't say that it's not. But a gentleman's agreement is a lot easier to get through than calling your insurance agent and saying, hey, I've had this boat for 20 years. Michael LaRusso's going to be owning my boat now. We're going to keep everything the same. We're just going to put him at the top. Is that all right? That doesn't usually fly.
Well, how about a hypothetical that really is a hypothetical, but it could be true? You've got a person who's moved out of town 10 years ago. They own the mooring. They own the boat. They haven't been here in 10 years. Someone else is using the boat on a regular basis.
Sounds like my kids.
You're still here.
In a situation like that, would the liability fall on the person who actually has insurance for the 2% down in Florida?
Yes.
Okay.
It all goes back to the first named insured.
Okay.
The other person is a co-insured, but the first person is the first line of defense. They're the one who has to answer any questions, sign the application. They have to, the bill goes to them, and they're the first ones paid, or defended in the case of a loss.
Now, Steve, can I ask you a question? That's the insurance side, yeah. You're our lawyer guy, so I'm going to ask you. So if it gets to a lawsuit part of it, you throw out a huge net and you sue everybody, right? So you'd sue all three of them. Not you personally, I'm just saying as a point. You'd sue all three of them, right?
What's that?
In his case, you'd sue all three of them. You wouldn't just sue the first guy.
Yeah, you'd sue the boat owners and the operator typically if there was an accident.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's not really pertinent for what you're trying to achieve here. What you're trying to achieve here is difficult, there's no question about it. But my comments to this gentleman would be that, you can, I can own my boat. I have my boat, I have my mooring, and I can let people use it. And I can decide amongst myself to share in the expenses for the use of that boat. It doesn't have to be consistent with the percentage ownership of the boat. You can decide otherwise to split the expenses another way. So there are still ways around that. Now, would I be comfortable allowing other people to use my boat on my insurance and everything? No, not really. But that's probably an occupational hazard of my business. But it could be achieved. So I understand his concern, and I understand why he makes this gentleman, sorry, refer to you as a first pronoun, but he makes this the tough question. But the reality is that, the more I listen, the more I think, no one's going to want to hear this, but the more I think maybe it just should be individuals that own the boat, that own the mooring. And then if they have arrangements for people to use the boat, well, that's got nothing to do with the harbor master. That's on their own. I can understand why towns took that approach, because it's just simple.
Along that same line, Steve, as a matter of fact, there's a few towns on the Cape where the state will not put multiple names on a registration.
Right.
Only one person can own that mooring, period.
They used to.
So if it's not documented, there's not even a question.
That's it.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting that's what the commission should recommend to the selectmen, but I can understand why that would be the case. And then, use of the boat, you can't control that. That's up to the owner, and if the owner feels it's okay for them to allow other people to borrow the boat, or use the boat, share the expenses, whatever they want to do. Good luck. This is a challenge to make a decision. It's a challenge. And I think the selectmen, John, are going to have the tougher challenge, because you're just going to make a recommendation. The selectmen's going to have to be the ones to draw the line and say, it's going to be tough.
This is the biggest issue.
And listen, to your point, ma'am, that we have been good stewards of this harbor, but, I can't remember when I got my mooring, but I got my mooring from a guy that bought my mooring in 1986 for $17,000.
There's a lot of people out there.
Yeah, and when I talked to that guy, he hadn't had a boat on the mooring in years. You know what I mean? So this is a rampant problem that I applaud the consultant for addressing it. We know that this is a problem. It's got to change. There's too many people on this waiting list. And I have no skin in that game, but I think it's unfair the way it's going. And to Steve's point, just so everyone understands, he's right. The Corps of Engineers and the DEP have very strong regulations on administration of the mooring waiting list. And I'm not suggesting that in this case this rises to the level of DEP pulling any funding for any kind of project that we might have in the future, but that's why I got my mooring in the first place, because it wasn't being handled correctly. The DEP cracked down in, what was it?
Army Corps.
The Army Corps cracked down in, it was...
After the dredging. After the dredging.
Yeah, it was 1996. It was like during the dredging, because the guy was at the hotel and he was reading that there was a mooring for sale in Scituate Harbor.
Right. So to Steve's point, it's important that that list be managed properly.
Probably shouldn't have put it in the local paper.
There isn't this behind-the-scenes transfer of moorings that we've got to make some effort to control them. So
Dick Echoes?
You're making a point about the 51%. Steve has made it very clear what he's going to do. And what I see is, unless you're trying to eliminate lawyers in the future, it really doesn't matter. I could point out to most of you who own boats over 26 feet, how many of you have a bell? You're supposed to. Very few do, because I do vessel examinations. And what I'm saying is, yeah, there's laws on the book. And I went and talked to both my legislator and I talked to the environmental police. They said, you don't know how hard it is to change regulations. Well, it's also hard to go through courts. So the 51% isn't the way he's going to do it. He's not asking you to prove it. He's already told you what he wants to accomplish, and that would meet all these conditions. First. I think that's the simplest thing.
I also heard him say he wants me to attest that I am 51% on that form.
Can we?
That's the difference from what you just
Can we
said.
either flag this one and move on?
Well, that's what I'm asking the committee to beg for.
I mean,
I'm gonna
short of making a motion. And
I got to make a request. There were two items that were going to be the high point of tonight, and this is the second of the two. We already hit the first, so if we could just put these on the table for a second and go ahead with the rest of the things, maybe we can, I'm sure we can come back to this later on.
Okay, C, registering of newly assigned permit. And I believe you have 30 days to get your boat and all the information into the harbor master. And the comment is, this is a very short amount of time to obtain registered launch and secure a mooring. If you're surprised in May with the mooring after waiting for 15 years. Do other towns place people under the gun like this? So the answer, this is not a new regulation. This language has been in the regulations for some time. If you already have a boat, this language is not a problem. If you do not, it could be. I recommend the language allowing the harbor master to extend. I recommended language to allowing the harbor master to extend the deadline, as done in several other sections of the recommendation. So it gives the harbor master the ability to extend to get a boat on the mooring by October 15th.
Yeah, and just to be clear, that was not part of the original recommendation, but I think it's a point well taken. I was always approaching it from the point of view, well, you have a boat, 30 days seems like a reasonable amount of time. If you don't have a boat, it'd be hard to do. But, we did put in a section, some language in another section that gives the harbor master the ability to extend in a hardship. And, I could see putting that in here as well to take care of that scenario.
Okay. There's a gentleman back there.
I have a question, because logistics, my boat's up in Hingham, and I've already paid my Hingham excise tax, I've paid for my mooring. So technically, if I got a mooring this year after the regulations went in, I can't pay excise tax again in Scituate. That's against the state laws. So how do
they'll take it.
No, I think what you would do is you would get an abatement in Hingham, and you would pay the remainder to Scituate. That's how it would go. It's like auto excise, the same thing.
Anyone?
The next question was regarding 51% ownership, so in reference to the answer above, and we've discussed it. So penalties in review of local decisions. B, do any other cities and towns have no local grievance opportunity? Never heard of having to get the state involved if you don't agree with the harbor master decision. So some do, many do not. In Hingham, for example, appeals go to Division of Waterways, Chapter 91, Section 10A. These types of appeals are relatively rare. Harbor masters I spoke with may have experienced one appeal in their entire career. Division of Waterways staff tells me they handle about 50 appeals per year for the entire state. My recommendation is to leave such appeals in the hands of the office that has been given the responsibility by the statute, and that the appeal statute in Chapter 91A points it to DEP. Okay, the comment, this report is well done, and I'm in agreement with most of it. I'm just reading, I'm not saying it. I do have a few comments and questions. On page 4, you indicate you spoke with a representative from Mass Division of Waterways and Army Corps. Who are these individuals, and can you summarize your conversations with them? They are listed in Appendix E. I've asked them questions about their roles and responsibilities regarding mooring regulations.
Anyone?
In your opinion, are the current and proposed rules, regulations, and practices of the town's waterways operations consistent with state and federal rules and regulations? Do you have any concerns in this regard? Did the state and federal representatives you spoke with express any concerns in this regards? The answer is, in my opinion, they are consistent. Next question, did you review the efficiencies and effectiveness over the past several years of assignment of moorings to those on the waiting list? The answer, I did not. I'll ask a question, was that part of the scope?
I don't believe it was, actually.
These are some of the questions that were
there was
presented
a
to me.
management component that, remember, we dropped out.
Yes.
We wanted to get to the regulations, get them done, get them before you and the selectmen, so they would be timing for this year. So, perhaps that would have been done in that point, but we didn't do it.
Thank you. The next question 4 here is regarding 51% ownership, so we're going to address that a little later. And the next one also talks about 51% ownership, but I will read it anyway, I guess. The cost to change a Coast Guard regulation, a Coast Guard documentation appears to be $84, and the cost to change a state title appears to be $88 plus $27.50 fee for a new title. We could be looking at tens of thousands of dollars on expense if all joint ownerships were required to modify their ownership documents. And Charlie Baker would be very happy about that. Can you make that was a joke, can you make an estimate of the cost to Scituate boating community to implement the 51% rule? Is it really worth the time and expense and effort? The answer is, my assumption is that most people who own boats as individuals will not have to do anything different with their title or documentation. I would not automatically assume that partnerships, corporations, etc. would need to do anything different with their titles or documentation in order to comply.
This is the last page right here. You got this one?
Yeah. No, I think that, so the next, okay. Do you have a question?
I mean, I don't know if you're soliciting comments at this point or not, but they're all, you can make those assumptions, but they're going to be always peculiarities. It goes back to how much latitude we're going to offer, that we're going to ask the harbor master to take on. For example, my wife and I have different last names. When we bought our boat 40 years ago from my brother-in-law, he sold it to my wife. Her name's on the boat. My name's on the mooring. Both our names are on the insurance policy. Both our names are on the excise tax. Somebody's going to have to figure out how to, what's going to happen with that, because he's going to get Lynn Maloney owning the boat and Jim Spellman owning the mooring. So there are things that
It's as simple as ask, we see something like that come across the desk, I call up and I say, can you, kind of explain why there's two different names? Because there are people with two different names. So you just call up and ask you say, that's my wife, that's her, her married name.
But it would be different if the fellow calls up and says, there's three of us who own this thing, but
I'd be calling him. I'd be calling the first name on the document, and he'd just say, yeah, it's my boat, my mooring. I'm the first name on it. I'm the first name on the insurance. Okay.
I'm not trying to argue my own particular case. I'm just suggesting that there are going to be peculiar situations, and I don't think that, but I'm just suggesting in my own case here, I don't think it's any more peculiar than somebody who's owned a boat with their two brothers for 40 years, and we still need to do all the regulations, right? I mean,
yeah. Well, the only reason is he probably has the same last name as his two brothers.
maybe it's easier,
So it might be,
It all comes down to communication.
We already went through
Yeah.
this meeting.
Yeah, and there was a lot of discussion. You just said there was no changes.
There's only one that I'm aware of, and that
You know,
was 14
it's
days.
just one of those things. I mean, we might say, hey, can you send us, your marriage certificate, something. Just drop it into the file, piece of paper.
Okay, so the next question and comment is on page 5 of the proposed regulations. The proposed change says a person must place the boat on a newly assigned mooring by July 1st of the year which the assignment was made. This is restrictive. They asked to be user-friendly to those on been waiting years and keep the existing language that allows adequate time to place a boat on a mooring. We kind of discussed this, but essentially it says that the comment reply was later in the paragraph, the harbor master has the authority to extend the deadline to October 15th. So, on page 5 of your report, you address transient mooring services to boaters. You indicate that the existing service appears to provide efficient and effective and adequate services to the needs of transient boaters. Thank you for the kind comment. The proposed regulations refer to 5 moorings registered by clubs for the purposes of servicing transients. In practice, the clubs and the private launch and services in Scituate put transients on moorings that are temporary and not being used by regular mooring holders, not the 5 club moorings. Why do the proposed regulations only address the 5 clubs moorings and not use the use of the temporary vacant moorings, which are used much more often by transients? So the answer to that is, despite reading 25 sets of regulations, I could not find any language that I can recommend.
Meaning that despite this being a practice in many harbors, there's no one that has put it into regulation that I could find. So my feeling was, if I can't find something that I feel comfortable about recommending, then to leave it alone, which is what I did.
I think the system works.
Exactly, the system works. You have a very lively harbor.
I think something's not broken.
I've talked to boaters who come here all the time. They're very satisfied with the services they get. It's not broke. Don't fix it.
Now, I've had a few people call me about this one, and this was the other thing that I wrote something to address this and then threw it in the trash. We worked on this for 2 years and we couldn't come up with a solution. So I'm going to echo what these guys just said. If it's not broken, don't fix it. We all know it's not right, it's not what the bylaws say, but it's been working this way for 50 years and it's been fine. So as long as there's nothing coming down the road that's going to say these guys are going to get in trouble for doing what they've been doing for 50 years, then I'd say just leave it alone and let it go.
Isn't that the same thing with that gentleman's situation? He's been doing it for 40 years.
Yeah.
I agree with that gentleman.
I'm just bringing that up, just for thought.
It's true.
But they're not breaking the regulation. The regulation says that you can use a mooring for up to 7 days.
Well, they are breaking the regulation because it says there's no renting of moorings.
They're not renting the mooring, they're providing a launch service.
Don't even get me going.
That's what they're doing.
That's all cement. We know it is. They're providing a service. So what if that transient comes in and they have their own dinghy and they don't want to use your launch service? You still charge them the money. You still.
I'm not charging them 10 cents.
We never did.
I don't charge them 10 cents.
Jerry King.
I guess I don't understand this. I don't understand why we can't modify the regulations to legitimize the way we handle transients today. I think it's important to do that. Because if you read the regulations, it basically says you can't do what we do today. Why can't we just add some language that clarifies and legitimizes what we do today? Is it that hard?
Yes.
Yeah, it really
Who's going to
is,
be renting
because,
the moorings?
You gave me a list of those other harbors, those other clubs that do exactly what is done here, and I made a point, and again, I said the reason I read so many were the things I was specifically looking for, and that's something that no one that I could find has addressed that. Can't touch it.
I understand that, and I did give you that list of 16 odd clubs to do it the way it's done in this harbor. But that doesn't really explain why we can't craft something. I mean, if you take a look at these regulations, they are detailed, they are extensive, they're specific. You're saying we can't write something in here that says that we can service transients the way we do today? What are we, we're fluent in English, we could do that if we wanted to. I don't understand it.
I think
just don't understand.
part of it goes to the laws, Chapter 91, and anything about renting. There's no allowance in those laws for renting of mooring, so you kind of get tied up in if you mention renting it at all, right? So we did this 2 years ago, we spent quite a while coming up with a document, and then in the end, we couldn't get it to kind of go anywhere.
Is that the real reason?
That's the real reason. We spent 2 years, and every time we come up with a document or a point that we thought we could make, one of us came up with something that there was a loophole. So for 2 years, we beat our head against the wall, and we finally said, it's not broken, we're just going to let it go.
So we're concerned about the laws for one, and it's working, like you said before, it's working very well the way that it is, so I think at this point, I think most people are feeling like, let it work the way that it has been working, and we haven't had problems with it, versus trying to craft something that could get us in trouble with Chapter 91.
We can put this on the agenda at another time, though. We can start working on it again and see if we can come up with a solution to the problem, but we worked hard to get it.
We spent over a year and a half on that.
We did. And like I said, every time we come up with a solution, one of us came up with a loophole that someone could play with, and we were like, okay, well, that's not going to work.
And that was prior to me getting here.
It was.
It was. Yeah.
Can't blame you, Steve.
Well, we can try, but once you're gone, we'll blame you for it. Okay, on page 6 of the proposed mooring regulations, you have retained the requirement that the mooring holder must notify the harbor master when leaving the mooring for 7 or more days. This has been the regulation for some time, but to my knowledge, it has not been enforced. Many boaters strongly disagree with this requirement, citing privacy concerns, concerns about use of their mooring gear without their permission, past damage to mooring gear, and the inability to accurately predict and fully control the time of their return. Why have you retained this rule? It's not enforced, and how have you seen it impacting the mooring holders' concerns and accommodations of transient boaters? The response, this is not a new recommendation. The language has been in the regulation for some time. Also, the language is common regulations that I have read. It is not a burdensome requirement. I would not recommend changing it.
Anybody?
I'll just add, I got a text from somebody today, and it says exactly kind of what was just said. I should not have to report my whereabouts for safety and security reasons.
Do you have to say where you're going?
I don't know.
Just say you'll be off the mooring thing. David?
There's no way for a mooring holder to prevent his mooring being used by any of the mooring services, right? Once you sign the mooring agreement, you have to tell people when you're leaving for 7 days or a month or whatever, and then that mooring becomes available for use by the mooring services.
No.
Right or not?
No.
So what is the requirement? Why do we have the requirement that they tell us they're leaving?
I think it's there so we know if there's somebody that's not supposed to be using it, and that boat's gone and there's no sticker on it, that we're going to find out why.
But we should
or
know
whose it
that
is.
boat, 'cause we should have a sticker.
But not if they could come from Maine.
Right.
They could come in from Boston Harbor, tie it to your mooring, you're gone for 2 weeks, 3 weeks. We don't know who it is.
Right. Some people put their boat in Scituate in the beginning of the season, and then they go to the Cape, they take their boat with them, and somebody backfills their slip, and they come back. And so it's supposed to be vacant. They're supposed to tell the harbor master that's vacant.
It's just so we know what's going on out there.
The boat that is assigned to that mooring should have a sticker on that mooring, on that boat, so you know, and we should know, not every boat in the harbor, but we should know, mooring number 123, it's boat with...
Everybody's supposed to have a sticker.
And they get dinged if they should get fined if they...
And then they will,
Absolutely.
they're going to start getting fined.
Is that monthly, or is that...
Just to let everybody know.
I was told by Mark Patterson years ago that the reason this rule was in here was nothing about trying to catch people using illegal moorings or whatever. It was, if someone reports to him they're going to be gone for 7 days, and all of a sudden they're not here, then it's a safety issue, and they're wondering what happened to them. Are they out there stuck in the middle of the ocean somewhere? So that's what he used the rule for. not to catch people that were illegally using moorings.
I think everybody would
But it was never
potentially have a
enforced,
different reason for it.
There's 100 reasons, I think.
Yeah.
And then I think Steve would like to know where a temporary emergency mooring is, especially if it's a large mooring, if somebody was in distress and needed to go somewhere immediately.
It's not to move people in.
Jerry has a question. Jerry Kane?
Question for the harbor master. Didn't you explain at the last meeting that this clause was in there just strictly for emergencies?
That's what he just said. Mike just said that exact thing. It's so that we know what's going on out in the harbor.
I think you explained last time, in the event that you had a boat.
If we have a boat.
To put someplace in an emergency.
In an emergency, I can today put somebody on a mooring that's available.
That's fine by
But it's also, there's more to it than just that. There's overdue vessels. There's people using moorings without authorization. Do you want somebody coming in from Chatham and using your mooring for 3 weeks while you're gone, come back and all your mooring gear is all torn apart?
That's happening.
You're gonna come and ask me who was out there, and I'm gonna say, didn't even know you were gone.
I don't see how you're going to do it. I hear you. But when are you going what date in the start of the season are you going to start enforcing this? Is this in May, June?
May.
Okay, May. Okay, so how many moorings are empty in May? How many?
But
Did all those people telling you that? And
No.
When they go away on vacation, you're going to get...
we're gonna know when you come in to get your sticker, that you're getting ready to put your boat in the water. You come in to get a sticker, correct? Come into the harbor master's office and ask to get a sticker? Huh?
I try to get it by mail, but I don't succeed all the time.
Yeah.
I do come and get it often.
So this is just, so
But that happens, usually I get my sticker right after I've completed the paperwork.
okay, so if we go out,
Before launch date.
if we go out and there's a boat on your mooring and there's no sticker on it, we'd like to know whose it is. And if it's yours, you're gonna get a violation.
Now, recognize that this is the current, no one's changing anything on
Nobody's
No,
regulation.
But here's the point, that it's not enforced, and it's very, very difficult to administer. I hear you about the emergency placement of a vessel on a mooring. There's far better ways to do that than going through all of this. All you have to do, I think, is if you really had an emergency, pick a mooring, worry about it later. Or call the launch services. They're actually very well positioned to help you out. And I think
So when you roll in at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock at night, you're gonna be thrilled that somebody's on your mooring.
I would understand.
Just a point of information, when Jerry leaves his mooring, I know that it's available, I know what the tackle is capable of, and I'm monitoring that mooring because I'm using it. And Jerry tells me, he lets me know when he's coming back in. So the day that he's coming back in, I'm making sure that mooring is clear.
Okay, so all I'm asking him to do is tell me, I'm the harbor master, not you.
But I'm the one who has most intimate contact with that mooring. That's a poor choice of words. I'm the one who deals with that mooring on a daily basis, so I know what's going on with that mooring. And in the past, when there has never been an issue when the harbor master has had a boat coming in under tow where in fact, the mooring services monitoring the radio often volunteer moorings. Why don't you go to this one? This one's available. Don't go to that one because the tackle is a little bit...
So what you're asking is the harbor master to check in with you to see what moorings are available?
No. What I'm suggesting to you is...
That's what they used to do.
Yeah.
What I'm suggesting to you is that we probably know more about what's going on with the moorings than you do.
If there's an affiliation with the club, to check with the
I'm not
launch driver.
looking to assign somebody to you, to the moorings that,
Oh, and I'm not...
Right.
I think...
The regulation has been in place for years.
That when he leaves his mooring,
These are the reasons that I'm looking to leave it in there.
It's consistent with the marinas too.
Yeah.
With the town marinas.
Anybody else in the commission with questions?
Not a question, but a comment as we go forward, that information that gets reported to the harbor master service should be I'm not sure how you record it. Like, is it?
We have a log.
Yeah.
We have the computerized log at the harbor master's office. There's someone there while we're open.
Three is vacant.
Right.
But Steve, you're going to be dealing with a large quantity too, right? You really going to be able to handle that?
We certainly will.
Hundreds?
Hundreds.
Are you sure?
Absolutely. I have no problems dealing with it.
I can't imagine why you would find that a good use of your time, honestly.
I have somebody that works full-time at the desk. They have email that they can receive the information, so when we're not out rescuing somebody, slowing somebody down, checking on different things, he can go in and enter something into the computer. It only takes a minute.
Is that information
Less than a minute.
secure so that nobody will come and rob my house?
It's not
Well, that's where the security comes into play. I mean, if you know someone's away.
Just check their Facebook page.
Anybody else in the commission have a question here?
No.
The last meeting we went over, not the last one, but the last regular meeting on the 1st of February, we went over the rules and regulations. Does anybody have anything new they want to add or change on that, or suggestions? Keith, you had mentioned you might.
I don't know. You just caught me off guard. So we're done with these questions?
Well, the two items that are still on the table pretty much are the 51% and the under 18.
So, Fran, if I may?
Go ahead, Brian.
So on the under 18, I would like to, I don't know how to exactly craft the motion, but I would suggest that we should grandfather in any people on the list who are under 18. I'd not accept any new applicants who are under 18, but for the people who are on the list, it seems fair. And do we know if it's 100 or do we know if it's a dozen?
I don't think we know at all.
Okay, it seems like that should be attainable information, but I still think we should, in fairness to them, grandfather them in and let them, when they turn 18, if they're just sitting and bobbing at the top of the list for that couple of years, then that's fine.
Okay, they'll be overlooked until they're 18?
Overlooked till they're 18.
They won't be called in the meantime, and they won't be taking one of their two opportunities to take
That's
more.
right.
No, not until they turn 18.
Right.
And then if they do one, that's one, and they do it again, they go to the bottom of the list.
No, they get removed from the list.
Whatever. And they can re-sign up so they're at the bottom.
So I think that should be it seems like a fair recommendation on this.
Would you go all the way back to include people that were put on as infants? That's my only concern is coming up with
They're not, I mean, we don't, if they were put on 17 years ago and they're going to turn 18, next year, yeah, keep them on. I don't think that's a...
How about we use the date when this is all sent to the Board of Selectmen as, how about we call it today as the time when anyone on the list is the only one on the list? There are no more new additions.
I think it's the date of when the regulations are adopted.
That's the date that they vote on it and say it's okay.
You could suggest that it be March 1st.
Right, because what you're also going to create a problem where if we announce this, people are going to go to the harbor master's office.
They're already lining up.
They're going to put,
It's good. So next generation voters.
No, what I'm trying to do is make sure we have a manageable process.
Right, Steve got it.
Any process is a good process. It just needs to be manageable. I'm suggesting, if maybe anybody who's 9 and up, or you know what I mean. I'm not saying don't grandfather the kids in, but come up with some reasonable accommodation where the person himself has identified he wants a relationship with the water, not that the parents have a boat and they want to get him on there when he was born. And, the second person they saw after the pediatrician.
Obstetrician.
Steve Guy.
We're talking about on page 4, item number 6, no individual can apply for a mooring. That's the change the consultant recommended. The rest of it was already in the bylaw unless they're 18. So I wonder if we're just making a mountain out of a molehill, because those people that are already on the list that are not 18, they've already applied for more. So the harbor master's office would refuse to accept any application going forward based on this regulation for someone who's not 18. You already have to be 18 to be assigned a warrant. So I think that the commission can actually recommend that this change be made without even getting involved in the grandfather situation, because
Without changing the current list.
you're not changing the current list. It says the consultant aptly recommended apply for a mooring application. So, and then it just becomes a policy of the harbor master that those people have already applied and they're not affected by this new law that sets the rule that says you have to be 18 to apply.
Sean,
Yes.
can we do March 1st so that we don't have 100 people walking in the door that are 3 years old and trying to get on the list? Or do we have to wait until these are changed?
But if they can't apply if the current regulations are you can't apply unless you're 18, then what difference would it make?
No, they can apply now.
They can apply.
They can now,
Until we
for a
adopt
mooring,
this rule.
but the new regulation would be, what you're saying is that this will be, this won't be in effect until such time as it's...
Yeah, we're hoping within a month or 6 weeks from now or something like that. But in 6 weeks, you could get 50 people walking in the door at 7 years old and saying, I'm putting my name on the list. So to Franny's point, can we go to like March 1st or March 3rd or whatever the date is and say from this point, we're not accepting anyone under 18, but the people that are there?
Well, at this point, I think
You think
Steve's
we
already
can?
taken the position that there's a moratorium on handing out warrants until these regulations are sorted out. I don't see why you couldn't say, well, there's a moratorium on accepting mooring applications. Right now,
We're sitting on these 50 moorings again this year?
No, we're not. As soon as this is done, we're gonna start, these moorings are going.
But my point is, I think Steve, look.
You can just do that in zone in the office.
I can't accept your application right now. If this goes through, you're not gonna get it if you're under 18.
Right. That makes sense.
The only thing would be the kids that show up as first on the list that are less than 18 would not, that are already effectively grandfathered to be on the list, they would not get strikes against them.
No,
when they come.
not at all.
So that would be something we'd have to write in.
Well, it's implied in the sentence that they stay on the list. They don't get kicked off, so they just stay on the list and keep hovering around at number one until
So
they're
Steve, what you're simply saying is that we suspend, make a motion to suspend any new mooring applications until the Board of Selectmen ratify the new mooring rules and regulations.
I think what Steve is saying is that we don't have to do anything
Well,
on
the
this one.
consultant had a comment about the 18 staying on the list. Were you concerned about that?
No.
Oh, okay.
Don?
Before any new bylaw goes, a regulation goes into effect, do they have to be approved by the AG's office?
No.
I didn't know.
No, we will make recommendations to the Board of Selectmen, and they'll vote them in.
If it were a bylaw, yes.
Yeah, okay, that's...
But regulations, no.
Sean Harris?
I was just going to say to Charlie, or ask Charlie, so if the minors on that list now, they can stay on the list until we adopt it?
I don't know. I mean, certainly the minor stays on the list until you modify the regulations. I understand the point that's being made. It only says apply, they're already on it. But then how do you get around, Steve calls them, they're not 18. Steve calls them again, they're not 18. How do they stay on? Because basically the new regulations say you get two chances and then...
But he doesn't call. He doesn't have to call them until they're 18 because they're not eligible to receive the mooring punch. So it doesn't affect Steve's ability to assign the moorings until they're 18. The bigger problem, Steve, is probably trying to figure out how old these people are.
I was just looking at my mooring book. I think I remember putting on a DOB when I signed up.
No.
No?
No, I don't think so. It should be
I
that.
can't figure out Brian's question.
So you may make some calls in the beginning and then, ask them how old, when was your birthday?
What if they can't talk?
Grace can tell you her birthday was today.
Yeah.
I think this is a non-issue.
I understand.
Yeah,
this... You control that by just,
This will probably be a non-issue if we go forward with the recommendation.
I think so. I mean, I think that's what, I think that's the way, the way I would read it. I think the selection would, in all likelihood, agree with that going forward. They could change their mind and say no.
Okay,
Off the list if it's under 18.
Thanks, Steve. Before I go any farther on the 51%, is there anything on the regulations that we might want to look at? We did go over them, but the only one I'm aware of was the 14 days from the time a person gives up their mooring, 14 days to decide what to do with the equipment. That's the only one I believe that we flagged at the time.
From the last meeting.
From the last,
Yeah.
February 1st meeting, right? Anything else? Any other?
The only other thing I had that I didn't bring up at the last meeting was, we really should have something in here for 4.5 moorings, because we have no requirements for 4.5 moorings, but we have them.
We've never addressed the rivers.
I know.
And that's
but-
all 4.5, yeah.
Well, there's still Scituate Waterways, so they should be addressed
Yeah.
at some point.
Well, I think we can address that at another meeting, but I mean,
I'm just
that's,
saying, though, that's the only other thing that I had that
Yeah, that's just
I
a
noticed
sort of
wasn't here.
clarification.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, aside from the 51%, in case Charlie would rather go home or hang around, do you have any, anything you want to tell anybody or say or sit up?
No, I've enjoyed working on this project. I think everybody that I've spoken with, both on the commission and among the public, has been very helpful. And, I think you're making good progress toward getting a new set of regulations that Steve could use to solve some of the problems in the harbor. So, I look forward to seeing you complete the process.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions for Charlie?
I just have one other thing. In the old regulations, you went from 14 days that you were required to be on your mooring to 30 days to be required for the season to be on your mooring. I just kind of can't believe that there's nobody here from the yacht club to talk about that, but I'll let that go. But I think that that's kind of a big jump, because we're seeing now quite a group of the boaters, yachters, that have been in the harbor for many, many years, that are enjoying the cruising life, that they have now that retired, and they've been able to, jump on the boat and go to Maine for a month or 3 weeks, or and then spend 3 weeks down on the Cape, or maybe go for a long weekend, or 4 or 5 days to P-Town and Plymouth and wherever. And I think that 30 days is going to be a lot. I know that you want the moorings to be used, but that's doubling the time that was, in the last.
I think that was addressed.
It was addressed.
Going to the
It's
harbor
also
master?
the entire season. It's 30 days over the entire season, not contiguously.
No, but still, I think that that's.
And if someone's going to go away for the whole summer, all they have to do is notify the harbor master's office that the situation is
They're cruising.
Traveling to
Cruising.
Europe.
Take a selfie in Italy, I think.
then you got to take a selfie in Italy and send it back to them, that's all.
With the boat.
I just thought that to put that 30-day number in there was maybe a little.
A lot of cities and towns they already have that 30 days. It's,
I think Plymouth is like 6 or 8
14 to 30
weeks.
is really a big jump for people that are enjoying the cruising in their life at this stage of the game. Or that, like Dad doesn't get the boat in until 4th of July.
I don't want to speak for Steve, but the intent isn't to take people's moorings away. It's for people to use them and to tell them when you are away. And he went over numerous times that if you were going to take the boat and do the grand cruise, just tell them.
And I think the intent is to also shake out the people who have a mooring but don't use it, and maybe squeak their boat in for a week at the end of the year.
Take a picture of it.
So what's the point? Are you really, either you're gonna use your mooring and use the boat and have a vibrant harbor, which is I think what everybody wants, or you're gonna have people who put, their boats out there without engines that people put in for 2 weeks, and then they put it back in their yard, and they're like, yep, what's the purpose of that?
Well, I know people that do that.
I know, me too.
Because it's their vacation. It's no different than a vacation to them. So that when they're.
No, I'm talking about people who just put a boat on the mooring, don't use the boat, just sits there. and then they take it out.
There's nothing inside the boat at all.
Right,
Nothing.
they put the boat on in order to keep the mooring, not to
I have sailed
enjoy.
around this harbor since 1962. I am very well aware of almost every mooring that people are talking about and the circumstance that surrounds the whole thing. Maybe not as good in the inner harbor, but I hate to see these people being penalized because they have been around for such a long time. And maybe, that's not their idea, it's your idea of how they utilize their boat. I don't know. It seems, I think that number, doubling that time was just a little too much.
I guess my question would be, how are you going to enforce that? You would literally have to be out there every day snapping a picture of someone's boat and then go to them and say, you weren't here 30 days and I have a picture of your mooring for the whole season. Other than that, how are you going to enforce that rule?
There's moorings right outside the window that I can identify.
Okay, so that's 12. What about the other 600? I'm just saying, I don't know how you're going to enforce that rule.
I'm not sure, Keith.
Get a drone.
We have cameras on the harbor too, so Wi-Fi.
I just heard two very extreme, two very different views. Phyllis is talking about people who are on the harbor, who are using their boats, who are going out on cruises and coming back or whatever, and you're talking about hulks, derelicts, boats that are being towed out. Why don't we address those specifically, rather than trying to blanket everybody with this regulation that limits or puts restrictions on their life? Has anybody done any study of how many boats we're talking about who are abusing this by towing out a hulk of a boat? Why are we putting regulations that affect 500 people for a dozen people?
Right, exactly.
Why don't we identify specifically how we can deal with that dozen people, rather than saying, all right, everybody has to tow this regulation because of that idiot over there?
Well, for someone, myself, who spends a lot of time out in the harbor, and I know you spend a lot of time out in the harbor, and as you've mentioned, you know a lot about the moorings, what's going on. Why haven't we done anything about these people?
What?
Why haven't we done anything about these people?
You talking to me? It's not my job.
Oh, okay, but it is happening. We know it is happening. We know that people are taking boats, putting them on a mooring, and then putting them on a trailer 5 days later, after they've established the fact that they're on their mooring, and they're gone out of the harbor again.
Then deal with them. Come up with a regulation that deals with somebody instead of penalizing everybody.
That's the regulation. That's what we're trying to do.
I'm not sure there's any penalizing
No,
for 30 days.
you're applying a regulation to everybody that has, rather than this one.
Good fences make good
You
neighbors.
use the phrase somebody putting up.
Having a regulation
So that
applies
guy's
to
going to be
everybody.
on his mooring whether he has an engine or for 30 days now. I mean, it doesn't, I don't know, it just doesn't seem to...
The regulation's really being put in place not to get on everyone that's not going to be on the moorings all the time, but really to get to the people that aren't using it and aren't using it for the whole season. He's got to have some sort of regulation or something that he can enforce, right? So we're trying to make it so that he can get to those, let's call them dozen people, dozen boats, right?
So why can't we make the jump from 14 days to 21 days rather than 14 days to 30 days?
I just think you're splitting hairs on a very small point. You have a regulation right now that says 14 days. The recommendation is to go to 30 days. You're not talking about eliminating the regulation. You're not talking about eliminating the purpose of having that regulation. But, really, I think you're splitting hairs. Yeah, as somebody said earlier, 30 I found was to be the more common number. That's why I recommended it. But, I think it's a kind of small point to spend a whole lot of time on it.
And Keith, very hard to enforce, but easier to enforce than the 14 days. I mean, it's just, fine, somebody might have their 3 weeks, and that's, in my mind, legitimate, but, 30 days is at least a goal that most people should have.
Okay, so we get back to the...
I don't think we get any complaints.
51%? Okay.
You want me to stay, Fran, or...?
No, Charlie, you can go if you like.
All right, because, I think I added what I could add.
I think you've given us everything. I appreciate it very much.
Well, thank you again. Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you, Charlie.
Okay, back to the 51%. Someone from the commission have something they'd like to offer up?
So, Stephen, would you take, I don't know if you can do it as a friendly amendment, or would you take the added verbiage of the first name, 51%, it has to be owned by 51%, and the proof is first name on the documentation or the state regulation, and first name on the insured, and first name on the excise tax?
You can present whatever document you want to the selectmen. That's what the waterways can do.
Yeah, but I'm looking to, so you have 51% in there now, but you don't say how you're proving that. And
I have, first name on the registration, first name on the document, first name on the insurance, first name on the excise tax.
Excuse me, you've said that,
Yep.
but I'm looking to put that in the document, to say that that is what you're going to do.
What do you do with
so then everybody knows.
the corporation? What do you do with the corporation?
Somebody needs to come in with it's Bill Smith on the, no, it's...
But the corporation owns the boat.
Right, but somebody owns the corporation.
And Bill Smith
Okay.
owns a corporation, his name is on it.
Now how do I prove that they're 51% owner or the owner of the corporation, or if it's just not some corporation that's been watered down to transport the mooring?
We're looking to help you here to get this through, so, I mean...
Like I said, you can make your changes, vote on them, vote the document up or down, and present your recommendations to the selectmen.
I don't think he's against that verbiage.
Well, he's not saying he's for it, so.
We've got to come up with something that we can present to the selectmen.
Yeah,
correct.
Yes, and it always just, as a little bit of experience, it always works well if the harbor master is in agreement with
But
what we're
I'm in agreement with the 51%. That's what I'm in agreement with.
We're looking to give some definition to how you're going to figure out 51%.
And I've told you.
Right.
So he wants
You
to,
have
we're saying the same thing. He wants to add those words in, and we're just looking to say, do you support that?
Sure.
Okay.
That's fine. Leaving the 51% there,
Yeah.
and this is how...
51% out, right?
Yeah.
I would
No.
prefer the term majority owner, but, and then the verbiage.
Go to the majority owner, you're right back at, you can...
Yeah, it's a slip.
It's a slippery
Well, no,
slope. It truly is a slippery slope. We're going right back to where we were.
I think starting this conversation, my intent was to somehow memorialize how, in the regulation, how Stephen is going to identify that. And I think it's first name, first name, first name. Yeah, you have a problem with corporations, but I think you need to,
The corporation has to provide me with a document that says that you're the owner, or 51% owner of the corporation.
But I think you need to give, I think the general public needs to know kind of what the guidelines, how you figure out 51%, how you figure out ownership, so.
Right. What is that document that you expect them to provide?
Corporate document, says who the owner is.
You'd have to bring in, a shareholder's disclosure, basically, to say that I'm a 51% shareholder now. But taking it to the other level is that, the president of a corporation has control of its assets, through his authority as president, maybe even through the direction of the board of directors. So it's kind of not.
I wasn't too thrilled in putting corporations and trusts and everything else into the document.
Right.
I'm telling you, I was completely against it because, again, it's that slippery slope. You're right back at it.
So, like this gentleman's point, you might have corporations with, 5, 6, 8 shareholders, and they all have 33%, whatever the percentage is.
Right.
You would be requiring them to transfer shares or interest in a corporation. I mean, I'm just spitballing.
What's going to happen is...
capital gains issues, because now you've got bigger interest in the corporation, you're transferring it. So I don't know. I think maybe the president of the corporation has to be the one that owns the warrant, in my opinion.
Okay, can I put somebody in as president that was not the president?
Yeah, you could.
Okay, have I transferred the mooring?
No.
I haven't. If you're the president of the corporation...
Oh, yeah, you have, I'm saying...
And then I come in, and then I buy the corporation, I'm now the president.
Yep.
I own the mooring.
Yep.
Have I transferred the mooring?
It's got to be in a name, not the name of the corporation.
Well, the name of the boat is So the president of the corporation is the permit holder.
I get it.
So,
I understand what you're saying.
yeah, that's, but if you transfer, if you make someone else the president, they're not the permit holder. right?
Unlike a person, a corporation that's an entity has survivorship longer than the person. So if a new person owns the corporation, what he's saying is you're ostensibly transferring ownership of the mooring by creating a corporate transfer.
Can I be the president and have 1% interest in the
You
corporation?
can have none. You can be the president of the corporation and not own
Okay.
any shares in the
So
corporation.
at that point, you're the president of the corporation, you know, you transfer it to me, I have zero ownership, 0% ownership of the corporation. Mooring, the boat's in the corporation's name, which I have no ownership in, and now I'm using the mooring, or you're using the mooring. Has it been transferred?
Yeah.
Yeah, it has.
Shareholders don't generally have control over the assets of a corporation
Mhm.
unless they are a director.
I think you're the one who brought it up last time.
I'm sure I did. I'm sure I did.
So, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. So,
I'm just curious, you're talking two different things. One's boat owner and one's mooring owner. So corporations can own moorings?
They shouldn't be owning,
No.
it
So
should
they're
not.
talking simply about owning the boat.
No, he's
Yeah.
talking
Boat.
he's talking about
Boat.
having a commercial
Boat.
boat in the harbor.
I get that, yeah.
But
He's not.
I have a mooring and I have a boat.
Right.
So I put the boat in a corporation's name,
Yeah.
Stephen Moan Incorporated. I go to sell the boat, I can't get rid of it because it's a boat. And there's around. I find you want the boat, but you have nowhere to keep it. So I say, I'm gonna give you 0% ownership of the corporation and make you the president of the Stephen Moan Corporation. And you use the mooring. It's in Stephen Moan, the boat's in Stephen Moan Corporation, the mooring is held by Stephen Moan.
So how does it
So I've
work with
transferred
the
it.
trust then?
The trust is,
But you have a
again, you can't put a mooring in a trust. It's the same, the corporation is the same as a trust, it's the same problem. And that's why I said, Falmouth does not allow trusts. Falmouth does not allow corporations. Falmouth doesn't, it's individuals have the mooring in a person's name.
Okay, I wasn't sure whether the trust would work differently than the corporations.
Oh, it could be the same,
And then an
kind of the same
LLC,
thing.
you're allowed to disproportionately, if you have all the money in an LLC, limited liability company, you don't have, you can share profits and losses not by the amount of money someone has.
Yes.
So you can have somebody have the majority who paid for something and then have the majority use, and it just becomes the nightmare.
Brian Cronin.
Same problem.
So that's why I said,
The trusts are no different. The trustee of the trust owns the assets.
they own the
Terms and
boat,
conditions
not
of
the mooring.
Correct. Subject to, some trusts are subject to the direction of the beneficiaries, some are not. So even if you had a 51% beneficial interest that you gave to Steve, the trustee may not be bound by that person's direction and do whatever they want with the boat. So it's...
So Steve.
You can clearly understand why towns have said no. It's very complicated, and there are as many loopholes in this situation as there are benefits to the town.
Just a personal question now, again, I'm not speaking as a waterways guy. So I have two
For
options.
free legal advice?
Yes. You said you sued everyone, so I like you.
He does this all the time. Get used to it.
So I have two options. I can either take the lifter boat and sell it to myself, so it's in my name because I have the mooring, or I can do that tax nightmare of changing the corporation's structure and...
Might be just as easy to put the lifter boat in your name.
Right.
But just to play devil's advocate, from Keith's standpoint, that place, that has its own host of problems, because now...
Yeah, now the
personally, that's
liability's gone, and I don't have the insurance for it
Somebody gets
anymore.
hurt. Is that boat going to be covered as an asset in the corporation if there's workers'
Boat's in the corporate name, the mooring's in mine.
Put it in a slip.
Again,
If you just need a good agent, they can name them both. You as an individual and the corporation.
Just buy lots of insurance.
I've been looking for a good agent.
Okay, quiet, everybody, please. Brian Corman.
Okay, Fran, I'd like to make a motion on this, the 51% ownership, and I'd like to insert the following verbiage. So, after this, so we want to insert, so this is part of it. I'm going to read what's existing, or what is. So, the 51% owner of the corporation who owns the vessel, okay, period. Okay. A copy of the Vessel of Record's registry certification of title, U.S. Coast Guard documentation, certification of insurance, and other documentation may be required by the harbor master to accompany this form, and the form is the permit, the mooring permit application. So after this form, my motion is to insert the mooring owner's name must be first name on the U.S. Coast Guard documentation, or essentially cut and paste the title, documentation, and the vessel's registration. First name on the excise tax, and first insured, period.
First named.
First named. Sorry.
It's actually managing name, managing owner on the U.S. Coast Guard documentation. Because you can list all the owners, but then there's a managing owner. That's probably the label you want.
But my kind of, the problem with that is not all boats are documented. So you have Coast Guard documentation, you have state registration, and then on the title, if you have a title. If it's registered, you don't have a title.
So it should be owner's name and managing owner, both locations.
Brian, do you want, I've tried to follow it as you read it. Do you want it to say including but not limited to those items? So that Steve can, if one of those items doesn't fit the mold,
Yeah, it does, the end of the sentence says, and any other documentation
like a
required.
partnership agreement or something. Here's my partnership agreement.
It does say, the last part of the sentence is, and any other documentation.
Oh, it does,
I
okay.
think.
Yeah, so that was existing. That.
If it's already in there, that's fine. I was just.
Yeah.
No, it says I may
But yeah.
require other documents.
Yeah, request. What I'm looking to do is give the public, everybody, to know what they're going to look for to prove that.
I think that's wise.
And is that on the application, and each year?
Every year, we require the registration, the insurance, all the documents. Because registrations expire, insurance expires, we need to know you're paying the excise tax, we need to know that the middle of the summer it didn't get sold.
We talked about this before. Are you expecting to put on the application fee?
It already has, huh?
Percentage interest. I think, didn't we talk about you have to just fill it in?
Yeah.
A line item on the application.
We probably should have had a
That's
second before we
that's
started
the key
discussion.
change. Those documents by themselves don't.
I'm not running this meeting.
No one wants to hear this, but that's how it. They spelled it out what we're doing right now.
Instead of 51 or?
No, they use 51% and they spelling it out pretty much based on what the harbor master needs for
That's why-
information.
Like Falmouth has a
Who's this?
individual.
That's Howard.
And
We're not the
they're
first
okay
ones,
with
obviously,
the
to deal with this,
51,
but
but it's individuals.
Yeah,
It's
oh, so
no-
they allow 51%, but it has to be individual.
Individual, it's people, bodies.
Yeah, I'm not doing all this legal work for free, figure all this stuff out when the paperwork comes in.
Does that mean I'm getting a bill now?
Send it to town council. That's not me.
Want to read the motion one more time, Steve?
we're just going over one thing. We have, there's some variations on this. As Steve said, it gets pretty cut and dry, complicated and nasty. Town of Howard, that comes as close as it's going to come to 51%, basically says if it's a Massachusetts registration which does not have more than one owner, then only one owner owns the mooring. And I think that's also the way Falmouth had done it. So
Say that one more time?
on a state registration, the documentation and the title indicates one owner only.
Person's name, right?
Right, and the town of Howard only allows that one owner, one person, to have a mooring in their name.
Why is that different?
Because it eliminates completely any idea of partnership. The 51% is out, any kind of a partnership is out.
I think
So
you're...
Your proposal, Fran, is to go back to eliminate all of this and say individual owners only?
No, I'm just saying that is the way...
It's not as draconian.
It's not as cut and dry as, it's not cut and dry at all.
Okay.
It's 2 paragraphs of legalese. You'd enjoy it.
What you were recommending or commenting?
Yeah, that's not included in my motion.
Okay.
I mean, maybe it should be, but it is not. Holy smokes.
Kelly, did you get?
No, I was just going to ask
Can
you
we-
to repeat it slowly.
Okay. I can give it to you, but...
I have moved that the Waterways Commission recommend inserting the verbiage.
The mooring owner's name must be first name on the U.S. Coast Guard documentation / state registration
Hold on, Coast Guard documentation. Okay.
/ state registration / title, comma, first name on excise tax form, and first named insured. Period.
And then to continue the paragraph.
Where it says that harbor master.
Right. That's the discretion to ask for.
So, yeah, so it's to follow, so the sentence before it is a copy of the vessel registration, certificate of title, USCG documentation, certificate of insurance, and other documentation may be required by the harbor master. Required by the harbor master to accompany this form. And then after, that's when I want this, there's a motion to insert that. And then say falsifying information, this is existing, falsifying information on a mooring permit application or failure to submit fully completed mooring permit application and supporting documentation that satisfies the ownership requirement in this section shall be cause for non-consideration of the application.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
In discussion?
So the rules stay the same, we're just clarifying what Stephen's going to be looking for.
Right.
So you and I are still in the same boat, no matter what.
Because I hear the 51% is still there.
Correct.
And that, all of that is a new rule, technically, right? It's not the existing rules today. That's all in red ink here.
Correct, it's all new.
So it's all new. And my question then is, do you want to make that what you just read is for registration of newly assigned mooring permit, but you also have the 51% and most of that verbiage in mooring rules and registrations.
Further down. In the document.
Further on,
It's got to be in both places.
for renewal. So you probably want to do it.
We'd take that as a friendly amendment to change it in both places, so you want to second that?
I'll second that.
Thank you.
What's the
Thank you.
sentence?
To amend it in
Updated
both
two
places.
But where's the other place?
Under mooring rules and regulations.
It would be on
Renewals.
page 5, under annual registration.
The first spot is, just so I can have it correctly.
The first is page,
I don't have this document.
okay, yeah, we can,
I don't have it yet.
First page shows up.
Well, I just want to make sure that this motion is...
Mooring assignment was the first place, right?
yeah, it was newly assigned mooring permit, and the second one is
So Stephen, you'll still get
mooring
rules
rules and regs.
clarify what the documents are.
Any other discussion on that?
There's a question back there.
Can I just ask a clarifying question? I know it's been said, it was said in the last meeting, it was said again tonight, but that the verbiage on this does not apply to married couples. So should that be included in that? Because I don't think it's ever spelled out any place within the regulations.
You're a spouse. It's in, moorings are held by, the Fed look at it, is the mooring, the two spouses are one and the same. They're the same that's the way the...
So in my case, I'll just give you an example. The mooring's in my name.
That's fine.
The Coast Guard documentation's in my husband's.
Okay,
Insurance is in both of ours.
that's fine.
I understand that that's what you're saying, but I'm wondering if it should be clarified.
It is.
It is in there.
It is?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's mooring permits and mooring applications are not transferable except to the permit mooring applicant holder's spouse.
But what I'm saying is for that documentation that you guys have just said, first name, first name, first name, it doesn't apply in all cases.
Correct, and Stephen has the latitude to.
And that's under that same
Call for that
section
and ask for that.
also.
It may be where I say, bring me down a marriage certificate and we put it in your file.
He does his other documentation, so I mean, you could.
You want a death certificate too?
Yeah, I was gonna say.
We looked those up.
Any further discussion on that? Take a vote. Dick Echoes.
I have a question for you.
Me?
Is your boat under your corporate name?
Yes,
And your insurance is under your corporate name?
yes.
Okay, as far as I understand it, what happens is if you look at, you've solved all these problems, but the name on the documentation, except for the Coast Guard documentation where you have managing owner, the only place your name appears on those two documents is, for example, your insurance, you're named as an operator. It's like a car. I've owned cars that belong to my corporation. If the bills come to my corporation, the documentation, the title comes to my corporation, has none of my names on it.
But Stephen's point is, my name is on the mooring.
I don't
My
disagree with
corporation
that.
is on the everything else. So I have to have 51% ownership of the corporation in order to keep that mooring.
He has to provide me a document stating that he is a 51% owner of that corporation.
Okay, so you're
Something.
going to do it that way, because it certainly isn't going to appear on any insurance
No.
or any title.
No.
Further discussion? Vote? All in favor of changing it to the new verbiage? Aye.
Aye.
Does that mean that there will be no corporate names on the waiting list or on the mooring registration?
Yeah, it should be a person on there.
Person.
Yeah, the way it
There
is
are
today,
people.
I'm looking at the list, it's all.
Because you can sell your corporation.
I understand. I'm
Can't
just
sell your
wondering
mooring.
if some changes that'll have to be. No, it's just.
So do I have a little latitude to get this done?
No, you're the first one to go. You've been a thorn in my side.
If you had a guess,
Franny just asked it.
if you had a guess, how many people are in this show?
I don't know.
If you
Yes and nays.
I did.
Not very many.
What was the count?
For the motion.
Well,
Franny,
I think Phyllis and her sister are in that same situation. but
Franny
not-
may know too.
No.
What's that?
He asked the question, how many people are in the same situation as Mr. Scheller in the harbor? Is it 5 or is it 50?
Or in any situation that's.
Well, Phyllis has her brother and sister or whatever.
I don't think it's many, but
Sean, I think it's 5 or 6, no more than that.
That's legitimate. They're doing it right. You know, these guys, you know, whatever.
So the question is, how many people are in a situation that these regulations are going to drastically change their situation? And what's the number of people that are potentially stand to lose moorings?
how do you find out?
Well, that's kind of a statistic that probably should have been researched for these kinds of things.
Well, this is the turnout we got of interested people. How do we reach out to?
Question on that, was everybody notified on the waiting list about these meetings and everybody that owns a mooring?
It was posted
Posted.
publicly. That's all you can do.
all you have to do.
You have to dig around and find?
Right at Town Hall. Posted, and it's posted on the website.
It's posted.
Nobody's hiding anything.
Okay, so,
I've got it back up here. We didn't get a count.
yeah, so Kelly needs to know just yea and nays. Was it?
How many did I have in favor of that?
Raise your hand, so.
Dave?
All in
You
favor?
abstaining? You doing?
Yeah, I'm just abstaining.
You don't want to, 3?
And you're
Fine, yeah, I'm just abstaining.
So 2 abstentions.
Any opposed?
6 and 2 opposed.
2 opposed? Okay.
All right.
Discussion on the rest of it. Can we go?
Discussion, anybody have any questions about the rest of it? We spoke about it last week. We didn't really have a lot of time to to ask questions on the regulations themselves.
Ask a question.
Question?
Sean, was there a follow-up to that? Like, if it's only 5 or 6 people, did you have something in mind, or? No. Okay. Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Is there an appeals process for this gentleman? I mean, can he go to the selectmen and say, hey, listen, can I get special dispensation? I've had a mooring for 40 years? Or is Steve, that's it?
No, there's actually, we spell out in the document here, there's an appeals process that I think we talked about earlier tonight. It's first to the harbor master and then second to
DEP.
To the state?
DEP.
Yeah, but that's not fair in this case, because the state's not going to understand the individual situation, and they're not going to understand that this has been going on, and we're changing the bylaws and not grandfathering somebody, and they're not going to understand all that. I think it should go to the selectmen if it was going to go anyway.
Well,
although it doesn't say that in the bylaws.
It doesn't say that in the bylaws that we just talked about. We said we were going to the state, right?
But doesn't this go, okay, it goes to the selectmen vote on it, and then it goes to the town of Scituate, and then the town of Scituate votes on it? Are you ready for lawsuits? I mean, I think you really need to think about this, because if you're going to put this through,
I think you're correct, there may be some.
Yeah.
I agree, but we've been thinking about this for a long time now, and at some point we should have got off the pot, as they say, We got to come up with something.
People being upset, but I don't think grounds for lawsuits.
Randy, they're filming this.
I'm sorry.
I'm experiencing deja vu. At one of the earlier meetings, was there not a vote to change, let me rephrase myself. The original wording was that you would appeal directly to the state. And there was a discussion at a meeting in which everyone said, well, that's not right. Usually we go to a local. Why should I have to go to the state when it's a local issue? And I do believe there was a vote where it was changed to, there was a local level, and it was the waterways.
There were several situations that referred to the waterways to make a recommendation to the selectmen. In other words, all we did was we heard the person's situation, and we made a recommendation to the selectmen as to what was going to come of it.
So that was it. That was basically. I thought that you actually made a change in the process.
No one ever gave us the authority to do that. We did it at the time, but we never really had the authority.
No, so just to that point, the Waterways was working on a set of mooring regulations. We took those mooring regulations with that, I believe that was in there, to the selectmen, and presented them to the selectmen. The selectmen looked at them and said, we don't like these regulations. That's when they hired the consultant, and now we're working on the consultant's.
So he went back to the original.
He went back to the original, and it was his recommendation, in one of these questions, it was his recommendation not to have a local, have Waterways be that local stop.
Because you're inserting yourself into the middle of Massachusetts general law. That's the issue.
And I think that's what he
It's
cited.
Massachusetts waterways.
Correct.
Keith?
Then why aren't they writing regulations?
Just to clarify something, I was at that selectmen's meeting, and what we put in was changed, and the town administrator was slotted in as an extra step along the way. And John Danahy actually said, she's too busy, she can't be doing this kind of stuff. And we said, well, we didn't put it in there, but whatever.
she shouldn't be doing this. She knows nothing about the water.
So I don't know why we came out of it. I asked if we could change our mission statement, or whatever you want to call it, to keep us in. And I guess I'll go to Mashpee. Mashpee uses the police chief, right? If there's
I don't know what.
That's what their bylaws say, or their regulations say.
Mashpee.
So they don't go to the DEP, they go to their police department. So what's the matter with having a local stop along the way before you go to DEP? And I know you have 30 days or whatever it is, but I think
it's beyond their scope and we get to change it.
So,
Is anything stopping?
so for Mashpee, if you don't mind for 1 second, right, going to the police department is really overseeing the harbor master, right? So
that's why
it's kind of
the
same
stop
here.
off
It's
is
really
there.
going to the harbor master is the local first step, and if you can't get it resolved there, then you go to the state.
They have a harbor master, so you go to the harbor master first, and if you have an issue, it says in their bylaws, you go to the...
Because he works for...
police
chief.
He works
But in that
for
town, with the harbor masters.
the police. He works for the police chief.
So I guess the people's point, though, is that that's a local stop along the way. And we're taking that away right now and just saying you got to go to DEP.
We're not taking,
You're not necessarily, because then you're going in. Really? If you go to the
Decision that you're appealing. Yeah. Yes, the decision.
Right? He makes the decision.
Waterways does this every, not every day. This is what they do. This is part of what they do. They're protecting everybody, not just, people that grew up around, and I'm not picking on everybody, but not just people that know everybody around town. They got to look out for everyone, fair and equitable to all. And that's why they're taking the politics, that's why they took the politics out of it.
Local politics.
The local politics are completely out of it. So the harbor master can feel safe making a decision, and if he thinks he's right, make the decision. And Waterways, Division of Waterways, will say, you're either right or you're wrong. And that's where it ends.
And they get very few, from what Brian, who did the research,
Very few, yeah.
they get very few requests.
Right.
Is anybody stopping an appealant to go to the Board of Selectmen? Can anybody get on the Board of Selectmen's agenda?
Remember there was some moorings that were taken away, there were a couple of...
There was a wait list issue.
Waiting list issues, yeah.
That came to you and then went on our agenda.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that saying that the formal way to do it is to go to Department of Waterways is fine. I agree with that. But if somebody has a real problem, I don't think there's any restriction from them applying through the TA to get on the Board of Selectmen's agenda. Am I wrong about that?
No, if the can't be resolved at this level, Steve would make a recommendation to Tricia would talk to the chairman.
Well, Steve makes a decision, right? And against an application I made, whatever, and I hate it. And right now, this documentation says I gotta go to the Department of Waterways. And I may do that or not do that, it may be a cumbersome process, I have no idea.
No, it's, you make in writing to the Division of Waterways, you have 30 days to submit it, and it's acted on almost immediately. That's how, these aren't long-term, dragged out 5 years. This is, a few weeks, and it's over and done with.
But it seems weird that only 50 a year have ever voted from the whole state.
From the whole state. And that's, got to do with docks.
Lakes and everything.
Lakes, but, people want to put in a private dock and put it in the middle of a channel, that's part of it as well.
It seems most things get handled.
It's not just moorings, it's,
It seems like most disputes get handled in some way, shape, or form. If only 50.
Rarely do they go there.
I'm saying, rarely do they go there, so somehow they're getting handled locally. If it's not, and the harbor master makes a decision someone doesn't like, it seems like across the whole state, even though this documentation and this regulation is excellent, it seems like most times they get handled locally. People do get, upset about decisions, so I think that they probably still can go to selectmen.
Mike Gibbons.
We need to make a recommendation or a motion to move forward with the regulations as amended.
I think we have to make a recommendation
to accept or reject
the consultant's report.
As amended.
With, as amended, corrections made.
I'd like to bring up something else, Patrick. I want to give Stephen a lot of teeth here, and my issue is with the penalties, the way they're talked about. And I'm sorry I don't have the original, I just have our notes and our suggestions. But I think it's on page 6, the identification sticker. And I've talked to people that hate putting stickers on their boat and all that, but I think absolutely 100% you need a sticker on your boat. So when you happen to look in June at a boat that doesn't have a sticker, you can say you're going to get fined for that. And let's say it's a $100 fine, I don't know what it is.
$100.
Okay, is that one time for the season?
I'm sure I'm going to hear from that person and they're going to get their sticker.
And if they don't want to ever put a sticker on their boat, well, you need a sticker, because if that boat changes and,
I think if it gets to that point, I don't have to renew their mooring. I can actually take it away.
So it's a one-time fee, and you're happy with that. You want to make sure you have the teeth to enforce that.
Yeah, because if they're not, if it's required,
Yeah.
and they're not doing it, then I don't have to renew their permit. I can just take it away. Doesn't mean they, if somebody wants, instead of on the fiberglass or on their all grip, they put it on a window, somewhere in the general area that it's supposed to be.
Doesn't have to be on the boat.
Well, it is on the boat, but.
It can be attached on the boat, some of the.
Can I entertain a motion?
I make a
It's part of
motion,
the
we accept.
bylaws, so we'd have to be changing the bylaws, we just went down that.
Yeah.
Except as
Right,
amended.
which we can't.
I make a motion, we accept the
$100.
consultant's report as amended.
And second?
So, I was just gonna say one thing, so, we're actually
Yeah, second
specific
first.
to the mooring rules and regulations, right?
The consultant's report.
The consultant's report.
Yeah, regarding.
Regarding the rules and regulations, and he did have other things that he had made
Well, there's
recommendations.
that's
Right.
what I'm saying, there's other stuff in there, so.
Right.
So this is just for the rules and regulations?
This is just, mooring regulations.
So do you want to rephrase that, Mike, or is that what you wanted to say?
That's fine.
And second?
So, I'm sorry, so we're saying motion to accept the consultant's rules and regulations instead of report?
With
As
the-
amended.
With the, as amended.
The consultant's report of rules and regulations as amended.
Right. Second motion.
Mike, give him a second. Any discussion?
Just one clarification. When we were talking about the kids under 18, when we first brought it up, Stephen, you said they need to come off the list. If we do nothing on that and leave it the way it is, the way Steve read it, are they staying on before I say yes and vote for this?
Did you amend it?
No.
Then they'd be coming off.
No,
See, that's why I wanted to bring this up.
No, it says to be no new, you have to be 18 once this is approved or...
It says no individual can apply for a mooring, be assigned a mooring or a slip in Cole Parkway Marina or Scituate Marine Park unless they are 18.
Right.
And what they were saying was those people have previously applied, so that's saying can apply. means
Correct, I understand
affirmative.
that, and you understand that, but Stephen said that, he just said again, they need to come off the list, and I want to make sure if I'm voting for this, that they're staying on the list.
He doesn't even know who they are.
They're staying on.
He doesn't even know who they are.
The list will stay as it
They're
is.
staying on the list.
As it's in here, they're staying on the list because there's nothing to say that would take them off the list.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify, because if I'm going to vote for it, I don't want to hear next week that they're all coming off.
By way of clarification, Steve, that is your understanding, that's how you will treat that.
Sure.
A vote to recommend this to the selectmen, that's how you treat that.
And when you call them and, he's only 16, well, sorry.
Their name stays there and
Name
for 2
stays
years,
there.
and then they get the whole one time, see you later.
So going forward, the waiting list that's public record should have like an asterisk that indicates somebody is under 18 and they will not get a phone call if they get to the first one.
And you'll
Figure
have to call
something
each of these people to find out the date of birth if it's not on the original.
Well, you got to call them all anyway, because you got to find out what space they want to go in now, because
Yeah,
there's
so that's got to
several
be,
spaces or
got to
whatever.
be
so-
determined
Actually, you
anyway.
need to call, they'll be coming in.
Well, whatever.
to Pay the $5
But there has to be some
fee.
kind of communication between the
That'll be
harbor
fixed in the next renewal
and the
cycle.
people.
Right.
Any other discussion on Mike's motion? Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Oh, you have a question? Do we have a question?
All in favor again? 1, 2, 3, okay. Abstain? Stephen, you're for or against?
And David Blanton?
Grant, can I ask,
Jim?
the vote's complete?
Yes.
I just want to, so consider me stupid here, but so what's going to happen now is you guys are going to forward this set of recommendations to the selectmen with your advice.
Right.
Part of, this is sort of my pet peeve at the moment, I guess, but part of the recommendation from the consultant we used was to consider restructuring the whole harbor, clustering moorings, reassigning things. Remember that?
Well,
We
that's,
haven't voted on that.
we haven't, it's optimization or regrading is what
That
they
was a recommendation, we haven't moved on that, or
No.
we're not in the
No.
money for that. That isn't part of this, that's going to be a separate conversation.
That would have to be separate. It's also going to cost money, so it'd have to come up, with the waterways.
So what we just voted was specifically on the mooring regulations, that's why we kind of broke that amendment.
Yeah, that's what I just want to make certain. 'Cause
He did make a recommendation,
I
Jim.
agree with the sentiment that there's selectmen who don't know a darn thing about the water, and I just want to make sure that we're not empowering everyone. I didn't say everybody.
I think-
I didn't say everybody.
I made that mistake once too already.
Yeah. I remember that.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Any other discussion?
Do you know when the selectmen would deal with this?
If we can get this together by next Tuesday, Sean?
Sean? We meet Tuesday. Tomorrow at noon?
Oh, tomorrow at noon is all we have? If we get it by tomorrow at noon, then they can...
So it would be on their agenda already, because they gotta post that 48 hours.
Posted tomorrow.
By noontime tomorrow. Oh, you're...
For next Tuesday.
For next Tuesday. For next Tuesday.
Yeah,
Oh,
after that, just 2 weeks after that.
It's only
So it would be...
it's only adding 2 lines into the
Yeah,
document.
2 weeks from Tuesday at the latest.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So look for the website to see
David?
when it's on the agenda.
What are the plans for mooring, what do we call it, the payments go out, the bills?
March 15th.
So March 15th, you expect to send out 600 bills, whatever it is.
Yes.
Tom, Gavin?
I have the same question.
Okay,
I'll make a motion for adjournment.
motion for adjourn? Sorry, Sean.
Wait,
Well,
wait a
I
second.
just want to, this is easy stuff. I should have said it earlier when there were a couple other people that were here. But I might, at the risk of embarrassing a couple of people, I mentioned it in our last selectmen's meeting, and I'm going to mention it again here tonight, because a lot of times you don't have this type of crowd, you may not have the camera on. Those of you that may or may not have gone into the boat show, I've been about it. So I put in with my son, I don't go every year. As many of you know, I'm just, couple of my family commercial fishing, But when I turn the corner at one of those big roads, there had to be about 150 feet of 3 displays, and it was all Scituate stuff. We're all in here for the same reason, we care about the town. More importantly, everyone cares about the harbor, all right? And what I saw, I took pictures, the cat house, Franny,
Boatworks.
The young girl was just Maddie. There were 3 booths set up, okay? And it really wasn't about mooring business and things like that. It was all Scituate stuff. It was just fantastic. You couldn't buy that type of advertising, or...
Then why are you trying to kill it?
Am I killing it? I'm just trying to...
No,
I'm trying to thank someone here. All right, just give me a minute, will you? I'm trying to thank them for everything they've done. In fact, I offered to be there next year. All right? I haven't said anything about trying to kill it.
It was great.
All right, does everyone understand what I'm trying to say?
Sean, there's also other individual maritime companies in Scituate. We're actually trying to expand that to get everybody to be in the same sections, to be linear, so that above everything.
Or should I do that?
Because in the past, I've had a booth, and other people's boat works have a booth. It would be neat to...
Ethan.
Yeah. He's not
They
moving.
can move to you.
No, it is, I want to get out of here. I want to reinforce what Sean was saying, because I went to the boat show, of course. I saw Fran working diligently,
wants to go.
benefiting Scituate.
There's not a single other harbor represented at the New England Boat Show, which is 550,000 square feet of boats, 600 or 700 boats, and 40 or 50,000 people through there for the 9 days. There's not a single other harbor that's represented like Scituate there. So,
Fran.
Thank you. Well, all I can say, we know what we've got in Scituate Harbor. I realized that 22 years ago when I tried to sell a mooring business at the New England Boat Show that wasn't going to work. So I've been promoting Scituate, and we all know it's a great place to go boating, and we get a lot of people who made it their destination. They come to Scituate now, and they spend money, they spend time in the harbor, and I think most of us have bumped into 1 or 2 people at least. So I enjoy doing it, and I'm going to continue.
Thank you. Thanks for everything.
A quick thing, I know it really has nothing to do with the mooring regulations themselves, but I noticed that as a part of the documentation, the mooring payment and permit process is from February 15th to April 1st, which is fine. The one thing I would ask is, would it be possible if during that time there were extended hours available?
We're actually looking to change the dates on those anyways.
Okay. Even so, for those of us who work, it's fairly difficult to get here during the week to be able to make sure that all of the documentation is in order.
Yeah.
So extended hours would be appreciated.
I have to go to the town administrator to see if we can, extend hours.
We could shift them probably.
Motion to adjourn?
I got one thing, another issue.
Go ahead, Dave.
We had to postpone the joint meeting with Marshfield.
Yes.
Has any progress been made on that?
It's most likely going to be April. We haven't solidified it yet. Okay.
Fran, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Hey, Brian.